Big Dumb Movie is a comedic podcast that often contains obscene language and outlandish commentary. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Big Dumb Movie, where we discuss movies of the big dumb variety. I'm your host, Korey, and I'm joined today with Steve Polychronopoulos.
I want to be Darkwing.
Darkwing?
Yes.
Isn't that a Marvel character?
Wait, isn't
It is.
Isn't that what Dick became after he was done being Robin?
No, that's
Nightwing. All right, I want to be Nightwing.
I thought you were talking about Darkwing Duck.
Okay, I'll be Darkwing Duck. I like that. Right? He's like Mr. Scrooge McDuck, but with a cape. That always works for me.
Well, he's like Batman, right? He's like
True.
a duck version of Batman, basically. Also joining us is my friend Jonathan the Zombie.
I like turtles.
All right, you're a great zombie, Jonathan.
I like turtles.
I like turtles.
That video always kills me.
We are here to discuss another 90s movie, this time from the late 90s, 1997, directed by Joel Schumacher, Batman and Robin.
What a pot of shit stow.
I want to say right off the bat that I don't know how much new ground we're going to be able to tackle here, because this movie has been made fun of for the last 20 plus years by reviewers and podcasters all over the internet. So I don't know if we're going to have any new insight. We're just going to have our own insight this time. This movie is going to be made fun of, though. I'll at least give that warning. It's not a very good one, right, Steve?
No, it really is borderline unwatchable.
But something that is great is just Batman the character.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, what makes Batman great?
I mean, I think he's different, right? Because he's one of the few that's not a superhero. He doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't fly. He isn't immortal. He doesn't heal quickly. He's like a normal guy, aside from the fact that he's got a tremendous amount of money. And, he relies on all these cool gadgets, and he's got the cool armored costume, and it gives them the opportunity to like reinvent him occasionally and invent new gadgets and stuff for him. He's just sort of compelling as a detective character. Maybe that's it. He's just a detective rather than being like a superhero type superhero.
I get it that you're building him up in a really positive light here, but fuck Batman, okay? Listen.
What?
Seriously.
Oh my God.
I cannot deal with the gadgets, okay?
What?
Like, for example, in the movie we're going to watch today, we're going to see Batman on ice, right? How in the fuck is this guy, knowing that he's going to go onto some ice, end up having some little clicky-clack freaking ice skates built into his boots? Bullshit, dude. There's no way Alfred thought of putting ice skates into Batman's boots anytime prior to this.
No,
that's
he's
bullshit.
right.
No,
He's right.
I agree with you completely about
the
that.
gadgets are obscene. Every movie, and this is true all the way back to the original Batman with Michael Keaton, all the way
what gadgets
through.
are obscene in that movie?
Every one of them, dude. And the freaking 4-mile long bat that they shoot out with a steel braided cable. Dude, how the fuck does he have 4 miles into his belt? Do you know how heavy that would be? Like, all of this is just insane.
I agree with you in regards to this movie, and we'll talk about when we get there. The gadgets in this movie, the skates and the ice vehicle, I had the same exact thoughts. There's like, why would he have the ice skates built into his boots? Why would Bruce have an ice vehicle? It is just, I agree with you. But I don't know. I think in a lot of ways he's the James Bond of the Batman world. It's part of what you see a lot of the old Bond movies for it too, is the watch that's got the wire ring he can hang off of,
You
or
can
the
swing with it.
Right, or the 7 Series he can control with the remote. Like I think it plus you got to detach reality for some.
Let me
degree.
rephrase that. The gadgets specifically tailored to the bad guy that he happens to randomly be fighting.
Yeah.
How does he have that?
That's more this movie. Too.
Yeah, this movie is the worst possible example of it.
Right.
Awful.
Yeah.
So, I know you're riding Batman hard here, Jonathan, and you're really coming down on him, but I think there's other examples where Batman is great, and it's mostly in the form of comic books, really.
Yeah,
Because-
the comics where it's at.
When you see something on screen, there's like there's an association with reality if it's live action, right?
Sure.
And the more it kind of takes you away from that, of all the Batman movies, this is the worst in that way and in every way.
Yeah.
But the more it
Agreed.
kind of separates you from reality, the less inclined you are to believe that this can possibly happen. Let me give you an example. My favorite actor, Robert Pattinson, played Batman very recently. That is probably the single most realistic depiction of Batman that possibly existed. Every gadget he has in that movie is slightly far-fetched, but when you watch it, you're like, that might be able to work. The most he does in terms of like building hopping really is he has like a squirrel suit, which is a real thing that exists. And he jumps off the top of a very high building and kind of like glides down until he fucking crashes and burns. You know?
I loved that element to Matt Reeves' Batman. It was brilliant. And the car, which is only on screen for a few seconds really in the movie, they did a similar thing with which I loved. And I've always wanted to see that, because even when they do movies like Begins, where he's young and he's starting out, they sort of glean past a large percentage of that and go right to the point where he's basically got everything mostly functional. Like in Nolan's Batman, he does a little bit of tinkering with the tumbler, but there's not a lot there, whereas in this movie you can tell that he's still new at it and he hasn't really figured out how everything's supposed to work yet, and some of it doesn't really work yet.
Yeah.
And that's something that they touched on a lot of, like, there's I know that in the really early comics, before he fully makes the transition, Bruce goes out like in a ski mask and tries to pick a fight with some muggers and mostly ends up getting beaten up, and like there's an evolution to him getting there. And I it's nice to see that they wrote that into a movie for once.
Yeah. Batman Year One, really good comic.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I feel like Batman Year One is very oftentimes tried to be adapted, not directly, but like indirectly.
Yeah, it's always one of those ones that the filmmakers say was an influence. Year One was always an influence, and we always tried to integrate elements. And before they officially announced Begins, there was a running rumor that Nolan was doing a straight adaptation of Year One. It turned out not quite to be true.
Right. And, there's a little bit of Year One in Reeves' Batman.
Yeah.
A little bit of Long Halloween. We kind of took from some of the greats. But which really leads me to a question that's more for you, Steve, than it is for Jonathan. And that's, what is your favorite Batman story?
That's actually a great segue, given the commentary we just exchanged. So I love the Batman series comics, but my favorite Batman stories have always been in the graphic novels. The problem is, I don't have the ability, like there's a few I can tell you, like the Long Halloween or the Killing Joke, or I had to bring up a list here. Year One, obviously, Dark Victory.
I think I know what your answer is going to be, but keep going.
Well, I mean, so that's like between Dark Victory and Long Halloween, for instance. I don't know if I can pick between. I might lean toward Long Halloween, but even then, it's a really tough choice. There's some fantastic spin-offs. There's a great spin-off called Gotham by Gaslight. That was like a steampunky Batman. I love that spin-off. They made an animated version of it. It's good, but I like the printed version better. Hush is great, there was a more, 10, 12 years old, maybe more, relatively recent one where Joker cuts the skin off his face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that was like the New 52 Joker. That's like that's intense. And that's a very cool, like kind of, I think that's in the Court of Owls, or at least around there.
I think if I were pressed, it would probably be a tie for me between Long Halloween and Dark Victory, and I might lean Long Halloween, but there's probably 20 of them in there that I genuinely love.
I was certain you were going to say Dark Knight Returns is your favorite.
What's funny is I love Dark Knight Returns, but it's actually the one I've always felt the most conflicted about in some ways. Not that I dislike any part of it, but it's just stories about those characters being at the end of their careers are always a little difficult for me, because it's not quite how you want to see them,
I see.
But I do love it, and I love the armor that he gets himself for the movie, for the story, and I was really hoping, like in Dark Knight Rises, was that the third Nolan one?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he has to brace up his leg and stuff, I was kind of hoping they'd go more that direction, and where it ended up was in Batman versus Superman, looking horrible.
Yeah, that was not good.
No.
Is that the Ben Affleck one?
Yeah.
One of them, yeah.
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 Ugh.
Right?
So I'm going to give my answer, and I think this might be a good one for someone that isn't that familiar with Batman comics to dive into. It's very digestible. It's an easy read. It's short. And that is The Killing Joke, which you mentioned.
It's a great one.
This would be good for someone like Jonathan. Jonathan is not a comic book nerd like me and you.
Right.
Jonathan's a real working class blue collar man.
Hey, listen, my experience with Batman universe is go to Six Flags for the day. Six Flags Magic Mountain. I think there's one in Valencia, California. There's one in Texas, and there's a few other around. But I don't know if the other parks have it. But go to the Batman ride roller coaster. Go to the Riddler's Revenge roller coaster. That's where my blue collarness shines.
Dude, the
I love to
Riddler's
do
Revenge
that.
song. Most nostalgic techno song of my childhood.
Like, I could still listen to that kind of techno music anytime. Like, it was such a hype, man. Like, you're waiting in line for an hour, hour and a half in that line to try to get on, and the music comes in, and then
It starts getting louder as you get closer.
Yes.
You're inching your way up this line.
Yeah.
And you start hearing the techno song. And
Yeah.
eventually you're in the room where you board the actual ride and it's full blast. But every now and then it stops
yeah.
for like their little announcement or whatever, right?
Right. Every once in a while. And the cool thing to do was to get there and time it perfectly so that you ended up inside the covered area ready to board the ride as dusk set, because then it turned dark. All the green lights came on, the green neon lights. Well, they were neon back in the 90s. They might be LED now, but it was such a vibe, man. It was so fun. And that was like my biggest experience with the Batman era in the 90s there.
Hell to the yes, my friend. And you know, I have gone to that park semi recently. That ride wasn't open, but I did take my nephew on Batman, which he loved. That was his favorite ride. So there's still a lot of cool DC stuff there to experience. Back to the Killing Joke real quick. Did you have something to?
Well, no, I realized I'm just doing what I always do in interjecting Star Wars. But I was going to say, do you remember what the entrance to Star Tours was like before they renovated it with 3PO up on the platform above you and all the? That was so cool. I loved it.
They still have a lot of that there.
Yeah.
So the thing that they changed, that's the big difference about Star Tours, which is a Disneyland and Disney World attraction, is that when you get further into the ride, they used to have a conveyor belt of droid parts. Yeah. As if they were in a little Ugnut factory, right? And they would take these droid parts, they'd take them through the conveyor belt on these little baskets, and it just looked really cool. You'd see little pieces of droids in there. They don't have that aspect anymore because they kind of prequelized it. They kind of made it a little bit nicer inside. That's not to say that the ride is pure prequel stuff.
No.
Because there's a lot of great OT stuff in that ride when you're actually on the ride itself. But back to the Killing Joke, I think one of the things that makes it great is that it's a very Joker, and it's a comic book Joker heavy story. It's about the Joker and Batman, and they have a face-off, and the ending is kind of open for interpretation slightly, but the name of the book is The Killing Joke, and it ends with a joke, which I'm pretty sure is the titular Killing Joke, and it breaks Batman. Joker finally breaks Batman. Batman kills this motherfucker.
I'd be interested if you agree or disagree. Either way is fine, obviously. But I would almost suggest reading The Man Who Laughs first and then going into The Killing Joke, because you get the origin and then the ending. Like, The Man Who Laughs is a great way to introduce Joker.
One of Joker's backstories, which may or may not be bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to try to articulate. Is it's a great way to introduce that iteration of Joker, or whatever you want to say, because, you know, they reinvent these characters every so often anyway, and we've got no idea which origin story for him was real to begin with. So...
And yeah, Killing Joke is written by Steve's counterpart, grumpy old man Alan Moore. He's like...
I won't apologize for Alan Moore, because I fucking love Alan Moore.
He's just... I feel like he's so fucking angry.
He's a grump. It's okay with me, but he's a grump.
He hates everything and
Yeah.
everyone. And he writes these amazing comics. At least he used to.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He's turned into an interesting person. His stuff is fantastic, but yeah.
So Batman and Robin came out in 1997. I remember it well.
Yep.
The reason I remember Batman and Robin is because this movie had some of the heaviest marketing I had ever seen in the 90s. This movie was promoted like you would not fucking believe. It was like Avengers Infinity War level promotion, at least as far as I was concerned. This was the big comic book movie coming out of the 90s. Now, don't get me wrong. The other Batman movies were huge, but this one got an insane push by Warner Brothers.
The London premiere for this film was the largest film premiere in the history of the United Kingdom. They spent that much money on it.
See, that's a great example of that. That's perfect. What I remember the most is those goddamn Taco Bell ads.
Oh my God, yeah. God, yeah. The Coke ads for the original 89 Batman were way more endearing.
Of all the challenges he must face, none is so determined, so relentless, so diabolically ingenious as you. Taco Bell introduces the Unmasked Batman game. Just peel back Batman's mask to reveal Bruce Wayne, and you can win cash. One of millions of prizes, or even a Batmobile, instantly. Yeah! Only you can unmask Batman, only at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Taco Bell had a game they were running, Jonathan. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like you peel the sticker off the cup and you can win a prize. The sticker is Batman's cowl. If you peel it off and you see Bruce Wayne, you win a prize. Now, the big prize was the Batmobile. There was a Drew Carey episode where Drew Carey won that. But to this day, no one really knows who actually won it.
There's another one. I haven't watched the whole video. I don't remember all the details, but there's a YouTube video circulating about it from the last few months where Pepsi had a promo, and I think in the 90s where the prize was supposed to be a jet, and somebody won it but never got the prize. And there's a whole documentary about this.
See, there's a lot of stuff I feel like in the 90s where that was the case.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can win this insane prize. But like, I don't think anyone ever really won.
No, it didn't seem like
nobody
it.
ever read the fine print back then. It was probably like you could win the jet if you were a licensed jet pilot that has, 150,000 hours of flying for the Air Force. Otherwise, you win like $200 gift card to Taco Bell.
There's another one. It's our old deceased co-host Alan's one of his favorite stories. It's about a woman who participated in a radio contest to win a brand new Toyota car, and when she actually won, they gave her a toy Yoda from the Star Wars movies and claimed that was actually the prize, and she sued them over it and won.
A toy Yoda.
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear that Taco Bell did the promo because Batman Returns, McDonald's did or not Batman Returns, Batman Forever, McDonald's did it. I still have the glass cups from McDonald's with the little handle.
Oh, those were great.
I have a Riddler's cup and a Batman cup.
I had the Riddler one.
Yeah.
I still have it.
We talked about this when we did the pod, Korey. There was a McDonald's Returns tie-in as well, but parents' associations reacted so poorly to the dark tone of the movie, McDonald's dropped the toys after like 3 weeks, so they're real rare now.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that.
Yeah.
Speaking of prizes and tie-ins from back in the day, the 80s and 90s, there was something that kind of just blew my mind when I learned about it, which I learned about it like 10 years ago. There was an Atari game called Sword Quest.
Yes.
Now, Sword Quest Atari games are kind of shitty, right? They don't look very clear, but it's meant to be like a fantasy adventure, D&D style, whatever. But they had, I think, 4 or 5 different versions of this game. And the idea was whoever got like the high score or beat the game or figured out the code within the game that leads you to clues to get to certain areas, whoever did that for each game won an actual piece of jewelry or like a chalice. One of them was a crown encrusted with jewels. You would actually get this physical thing. One of them was a sword. The big one was the sword for the person that did I think all 4 games. It was a real sword encrusted with jewels like diamonds, rubies, all this shit. We're talking about real treasure here, right? You can get real treasure from playing these games. And some people did win, and it was documented. But one of the things that no one really knows what happened to was the sword, because they never finished. They never completed it. Atari went under before they finished it.
Wow, it's incredible.
So there's also the Batmobile thing, right? Like no one really knows, at least no one that I could find online had an answer for it. I found like a bunch of forums where people were trying to figure it out, but the joke answer is Drew Carey because Drew Carey wanted the show.
I would put money on Jay Leno.
Yeah, right.
He probably has it in his stash.
Jay Leno.
The Batmobile?
Yeah.
Jay Leno shows up occasionally at a car show that's held weekly not far from here, and he showed up once like a year and a half ago with a friend who I guess was a prop master from Warner Brothers, and the friend was driving one of the Keaton 89 Batmobiles. It was actually driving.
That's epic.
It was really cool.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
he won't be going to any car shows anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah, he got
himself
busted
on
up
fire.
pretty good on a motorcycle wreck this week.
Man.
Broken collarbones,
Dude, he already set his
ribs,
face on
legs,
fire.
arms. Yeah,
Like, fuck.
yeah.
Do you remember Nintendo Power?
Oh, fuck yeah, I do. A friend of mine was
Is that
on
a
an
magazine?
episode of the TV show in like 1993. He bragged about it at school for months.
It was a magazine, right?
It was a magazine. There was a
Yeah.
tie-in TV program that lasted 2 years, something like that. It was a bunch of kids sitting around. It was a call-in show. They would talk about the video games, and then they would take calls for like $3 a minute from any kid who could sneak away from where their parents were close enough to know what they were doing. Like,
That was back when like 1-900 numbers were a thing. You could actually call into Nintendo Power
Yeah.
too and get tips on a game. They had
Yeah.
live agents, people at a job working their 9 to 5 to give tips on video games.
Isn't that weird?
It is.
I mean, it seemed totally normal at the time, but God, what a different landscape it was. The whole idea of this stuff was so new. They were just trying everything.
The reason I bring up Nintendo Power, though, is because there was a contest in there that was never completed because the prize for this contest, whatever the contest was to be in The Mask 2 starring Jim Carrey,
Oh my God.
a movie that never came
got
out.
made. Yeah, I was going to say they just went straight to the one with Jamie Kennedy in it.
And that was like 10 years later.
Later, yeah.
So I doubt they were like, hold on, kid, we're in pre-production still. Like,
We should do that one sometime. I got a lot of conflicting opinions about that movie.
Son of Mask?
No, I just have bad opinions about.
Oh, I
We
was
should
going
do
to say,
the-
what's there to be
They
conflicted
did
about?
nothing. The first one, though, because I mean, I like the comic. The comic was cool. It's another comic movie that a lot of people don't know was a comic
Image?
movie. Yeah, I think it was that. It was either Image or Mirage. Now I'm blanking on which of the two. I think it was an Image title, though.
Way different comic than
Yeah.
the movie, though.
Yes. Yeah, that was exactly. It was one of those ones where they borrowed the name and a portion of the premise, and everything else got tossed.
Jonathan, you know the movie The Mask, right?
Oh yeah, I'm down to review that one just for the sake of Cameron Diaz, dude. Oh my god.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's
Dude,
the biggest redeeming part of that film.
Yeah.
Settle down,
definitely.
Simps.
Right?
I'm just kidding.
Whatever.
So you remember the part when Jim Carrey has his big song and dance and he has the maracas and he
Oh,
gets
yeah.
everyone to dance and like that's how he escapes the situation because he's surrounded by cops?
Yeah.
That's in the comic. And then after the dance, he just murders them all with a
Yeah.
gun.
Sweet.
He just kills them all.
Isn't that at the Coco Bongo?
Yes.
Yeah.
The premier club. That club always reminded me of like something like I Love Lucy, like Ricky's
Yeah.
club, like, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very funny, man.
Yeah, like a Cuban
Cuban
themed
nightclub, yeah.
Miami
All mambo music.
nightclub.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Back to this movie in the 90s, man. That hype was insane. I just want to say that I went to see this movie after much hype building up for,
Oh,
to me,
yeah.
what felt like years. Although it was probably just like a year of marketing material. I saw this fucking movie, and it's one of the biggest disappointments of all time for me.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to throw in a little caveat that I was in denial about this movie. I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. But I knew, like, when I left the theater, I felt incomplete. Like, I did not have that satisfaction like I had when I left The Dark Knight, for example. A lot of hype for that movie, right? I saw it and I was completely satisfied. Same thing with The Batman. A lot of hype for it.
Right.
Left completely satisfied. There's a feeling you get of satisfaction when you leave a movie theater that even if you say you like the movie, you can't deny. Then that's that inner feeling, and I
Right.
did not have it with this one.
No, and per your comment, not only do I agree, you're completely right. Typically speaking, at least at this point in history, Warner Brothers was targeting 3-year gaps between Batman movies. Forever came out in June of 95. They got this film out in June of 97, 2 years later instead of 3. Forever had made so much money, the studio was desperate to just make the next one as quickly as they could, and they rushed it. So it did come out more quickly than it normally would have, but it also felt like they'd been hyping it for like a decade by the time it actually hit theaters, right? And I agree. I did the same thing. I went to see it the weekend it came out, and leaving the theater, I didn't have any positive reaction to it at all. I was just angry at it. I was angry at the whole thing. I'd already read the Nightfall comics. I knew what Bane was supposed to be like. I was real pissed. Like, yeah.
I don't remember watching this in the theater. I know I did, but I don't remember it so much. But like watching this over the weekend, I mean, literally in the first 30 seconds after we see the Batman logo, right? Like we just get into the movie in the first 30 seconds. I already checked to see how long it was. I was like, fuck, this movie is 2 hours?
Yeah.
Dude, it's only been 30 seconds and I already wanted it to be over.
I had the same reaction. You don't even get a full 90 seconds in before you're like, this is going to be awful. How long do I have to sit through this?
Yeah. So I understand not being fulfilled.
It's a long boy, this movie.
I don't understand why it's 2 hours. I told you guys before we started recording, I went to watch this on streaming and I accidentally rented an animated feature called Batman vs. Robin. It took me about 2 minutes to realize I was watching the wrong thing, but immediately into it, I pulled up to see how long it was, and that animated feature is only 80 minutes. And I was like, oh, thank God, this movie's only going to be 80 minutes. And then I realized I was watching the wrong thing. And when I started watching this and I pulled up the running time, I'm like, this motherfucker's 2 hours long? I got to sit through 2 hours of this?
And that's probably a better movie, Batman vs. Robin, which I've never seen.
Neither have I.
But the Warner Brothers Batman animated stuff is pretty good.
It is pretty good. It is pretty good. I always tend to prefer the comics they're adapted from, but no argument. They are really well made.
The Long Halloween, good adaptation.
It is good. Yeah.
You know, Gotham by Gaslight, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But let's not forget Mask of the Phantasm.
No, that one is my standout favorite. And I think part of the reason why is because it was original, so there's no comic for me to be picky about them having adapted from. But it's an amazing feature. I saw that in the theater. I bet you did too. I've loved that every moment since. No complaints.
Well, I just remember the trailer for that being in front of a bunch of my VHS tapes.
Right.
When I say in front of, I mean when I put in a VHS tape and it starts at the beginning of the tape.
Yeah.
It started with trailers back in the day. So I know that some people have been confused when I say in front of, but that's what I mean by that. So I had a bunch of kids' VHS tapes, probably Warner Brothers movies, who knows? I'd pop them in, and Mask of the Phantasm would be advertised. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this is pretty fucking sweet. Who's this Phantasm motherfucker?
Right.
They look pretty badass.
It was so well made. My mother took my brother and I to see it. My mom has no interest in comic book stuff, but still to this day, she will occasionally say to me, what was the name of that animated Batman movie I took the two of you to see? I liked that. It was a good one. My mother's 71 years old. You know, like it was the only one she'll ever say anything like that about.
That's another kind of sign, too. Like, when you're a kid and you're watching some kind of form of kids' media like this, like, so I think I remember my dad, like, watching some of Batman the Animated Series with me. And, like, you know, him not telling me to change the channel is a good sign of quality, right?
I was just going to talk about that, Batman the Animated Series. I literally just pulled it up on my phone, dude. That was so fun after school talking about or watching Batman the Animated Series. I think there was about, 4 seasons or something like that? 3 or 4 seasons.
And a lot of episodes.
Yeah, that was back in the good days where a season consisted of 25 or 30 episodes per season.
I miss that.
Yeah.
One of our favorite people, John Glover, the former Mr. Clamp, who's in this movie for a few minutes, also voiced Riddler in a bunch of animated Batman stuff.
You know, that guy, I confuse him physically by the way he looks with Kevin Conroy sometimes.
I can see that. Yeah, but they're Riddler and Joker, so it's a good pair.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
Hey, you want to hear something interesting about that Batman the Animated Series?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Hamill's Joker. It's Batman and Riddler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 1, guess how many episodes? How many do you think?
30?
How many do you think?
25.
60.
Wow, was it really 60?
Yeah.
Wow.
Season 2,
Probably less.
16.
Wow, now that's more normal for an animated series. It's usually like 16 to 25, but that is a
Yeah.
huge reduction.
Season 3, 10.
Ooh, oof.
Season 4, 5 episodes.
How can...
They blew their wad on the first season.
They did.
For sure.
Isn't it weird? A lot of those shows that seem to trickle out that way are the ones that a lot of the fans still love the most 30 years later.
Yeah.
Strange.
It's because we got the money shot on the first season.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, I think we got Heart of Ice pretty early on. Emmy award-winning television show.
Yeah. Well, and they claimed that some of Freeze for this was adapted from that, but it's real hard to see looking at it.
I mean, I know which exact parallels they're referring to in
Yeah.
that, but it doesn't count basically because
No.
it has to be closer to what the cartoon was in order to make it all work. Otherwise, you only have fragmented bits, and we'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, because they let toy companies design him, is how this happened. But yeah.
So there's an episode in Batman the Animated Series called Heart of Ice. And that was
that's what we're
only
talking about.
oh, okay. Let's say, that was in 1992. And that was only like 13 or 14 episodes in.
I did a podcast with spoilers on Mr. Freeze. We talked about the Adam West first episode that introduced Mr. Freeze. We talked about Heart of Ice. We talked about a few Batman comics pertaining to Mr. Freeze. But that Heart of Ice is one of the best depictions of Mr. Freeze, period.
Yeah, it's one of the only ones where I never had any strong negative feelings about that character, but I never especially liked him either. And Heart of Ice was one of the only instances where I actually found the character compelling.
Oh, yeah. Very good story in that. But, Steve, I want to ask you about a different story. Batman and Robin 1997. Why the hell was this movie made?
So Batman Forever, the previous one, came out in June of 95, and despite also roundly being reviled by a lot of fans, happened to make a shit ton of money. And Warner Brothers was so excited by that they decided to just rush into the next movie, per what we were talking about a couple minutes ago. And they set a release date for June of 97, and they rehired Joel Schumacher as director and Akiva Goldsman to write the script. Schumacher was allowed a little bit of leeway in the script. He really wanted to interject even more of the campy 60s era TV show into this one than he had with Batman Forever, which you can see immediately. I mean, like within the first 3 or 4 minutes of the movie, when Commissioner Gordon first appears to Batman in the Batmobile, it's obvious this is going to be a camp affair. It is not at all serious. But the studio also demanded that they make the film more toyetic. Toyetic is the word that tends to get used the most. I don't even know if it's really a word, but it is what it is. It sounds like it should imply, which is to say they wanted the movie to feel like it was associated with toys. Like there was a toy association, because they wanted to really quadruple down on the fucking toy marketing for this movie. And it was so bad that in order to ensure they'd get the toys to look and match the movie the way they want to do, they basically handed a large portion of Mr. Freeze's character design, particularly his ice blaster. They basically just gave the design to toy makers. It was Hasbro or somebody, and they said, you guys sort of figure out how this is going to look and we'll make it happen, and that way your toys can look the same.
I feel like it was Kenner.
It may have been Kenner. I think you could be right absolutely could be right about that. So, now we've got Schumacher, who wants to make the movie more like a 60s television show, and you've got the studio telling them you've got to make it more like a toy affair, and they've got toy designers designing most of what Freeze is going to look like. It's not a good way to start the movie. Apparently, Akiva Goldsman, pretty much right off the bat, told Schumacher that he didn't like where the script was going and didn't think it was shaping up well, and Schumacher's retort was essentially, this is what the studio wants, it's as close as we're going to get, just keep writing it. So they wrote the script, they just sort of rushed it into production. There wasn't a whole lot of fanfare in terms of getting ramped up. The only real big note is that during this period, there was a decision to replace Val Kilmer as Batman. And we've already talked about Kilmer. There's a lot of separate discussion there. He's kind of a sympathetic asshole. And it's like very mixed bag. He's supposed to be difficult, and he's got his own side of things. He claims that he found out via television set that his wife was going to divorce him, and that put him in a really bad place, and he was kind of a prick to begin with. He also said that playing Batman was a very isolating experience because he couldn't hear anything inside the mask, and he was mostly left standing around on the set all the time waiting for everyone else to get started, and he couldn't hear a lot of the dialogue being given to him by the other actors, which is probably true, and the suit's supposed to be really uncomfortable, but it wasn't a good relationship. And the exact line on why he didn't come back shifts a little bit depending on which person and which interview. Some early rumors suggested that Kilmer was desperate to return to the part and just couldn't make it work. Schumacher has said his experience working with Kilmer was bad enough that he didn't really want Kilmer back. Kilmer has said he didn't even really think about it because he'd already accepted an offer to do The Saint, and the production schedules overlapped. So who knows? Like, probably a combination of all of that. But they ended up casting George Clooney to play the part, who had not had a lot of experience in films. He was mostly known as a TV actor. He was on a very popular show called ER. Apparently, Schumacher saw From Dusk Till Dawn.
I was going to say, he must have seen From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, and liked Clooney in that and decided he'd be good as Batman. They reportedly considered a small number of other people. David Duchovny, formerly of The X-Files, claimed at one point that he was auditioned for Batman and they passed on him, but I don't know. There's also a lot of other rumors about who they were considering for Mr. Freeze before production. There's a rumor that Anthony Hopkins was considered at one point, and in some ways that's almost perfect, and in other ways it would have been totally wrong. But apparently Schumacher decided at some point that he wanted Mr. Freeze to be somebody gigantic and with a lot of physical presence, and he just immediately decided Schwarzenegger, which I guess makes a lot of sense because he still is, but was, especially in the mid and late 90s, one of the biggest stars on the planet. Anything he was in would draw people to a theater.
To be honest, he's probably the best actor in the movie.
Right? My vote for best actor is the leader of the gang with the neon paint. I love that guy. But we'll get
Come
to
here, my pretty, pretty, pretty.
You look good enough to eat.
Good enough to eat.
That would have been a great cameo for Anthony Hopkins as playing that part.
Oh my God. Imagine Hopkins gives that line.
Right? But
That's scary.
Right?
You don't want Anthony Hopkins saying you look good enough to eat.
No. But it ended up being a mess. It's way too campy. It's way too cringy. We'll get into the details of why as we go through it. He way overdid the camp factor with this one while also making it too much like a toy. Just along those lines quickly, when comparing work on Batman Forever, Chris O'Donnell said that things felt more sharper and more focused on this. Or no, in Forever, actually, he said that. But that for this one, it felt like he was making a toy commercial. That's the way Chris O'Donnell referred to working on this.
Well, you were, my friend.
Yeah, he really was. And John Glover, the former President Clamp from Gremlins 2, played Dr. Jason Woodrow, the guy who invents Bane in this movie. He says that Schumacher spent most of the production sitting on a crane yelling at everyone over a megaphone. And that Schumacher's most common point of direction was to tell everyone to remember that they were making a cartoon. So that says a lot about where they were going with this. So I
hate that.
Right? I want a campy 1960s homage that's also a cartoon and is also a toy commercial. There's no way any of this is going to come out right.
I think they got exactly what they asked for.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
fucking
weird part.
abomination of 3 different styles of a movie compiled into one and just came out a vacuum abortion mess.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it was just, even leading up to it was kind of a mess. The production itself, I don't think had any real big onset. Well, okay, I take that back. There was something worth note. One thing I think is sort of amusing, real quick. They gave Schwarzenegger this glowing mouthpiece, but they used chemical batteries and LED light strips to make it work, and apparently his saliva kept dissolving the battery packs and they'd leak acid into his mouth. So that was an issue. I think what I read is that they eventually solved it by wrapping the batteries in balloons or condoms or something, and that they would stop that from happening, but that must have been real uncomfortable for him.
Hopefully the condoms were flavored.
Right?
Don't do steroids, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. They also, as far as casting stuff, apparently they considered Demi Moore, Sharon Stone, and Julia Roberts for Poison Ivy before landing on Uma Thurman. Schumacher apparently only knew Uma Thurman from a part she played in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, but she's like a really small side character. It was way early in her career. So it's interesting, and he apparently liked her enough that...
I mean, this is after Pulp Fiction, so
yeah.
He hadn't seen Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, I find that weird that in the interviews, that's what he associated her with, was Baron Munchausen. And it's like, really? Because she'd been in bigger stuff since then.
Yeah.
She'd also been in a really popular indie movie that I think was called Cowgirls Don't Get the Blues, something like that. It was one of the first roles she got a starring thing in. But yeah... They apparently Alicia Silverstone was the only actress they considered for Batgirl, and that turned out to be a whole fucking thing. Not only was her performance widely panned, but I'm not saying any of this to be mean. I just didn't realize this had even been an issue because I was so little at the time. Apparently she gained like 12 pounds in between being cast and showing up on set, and they had to retailor a bunch of her costumes to hide the extra weight. And then she apparently gained a little bit more weight post-production before they went on the PR trail, and a lot of the reporters were just picking on her for having gotten chubby. That was the thing they were reporting. Schumacher was reading so much of it, he actually commented on it in an interview to say, I don't understand why everyone is aiming this at this young woman. Her only crime is having had a few too many pieces of cake, was something that's what he said. So it's really weird that this turned into like a body image thing for her, and she's beautiful. But yeah, that was a really weird thing. I also want to address quickly, we'll talk about it more, the nipples on the Batman costume made a return. They were also bigger.
Nipples Returns, directed by Tim Burton.
Right. The costume designer, Jose Fernandez, claims that Schumacher told him specifically, in no uncertain terms, to make the nipples both larger and sharper. That was Schumacher's direction for the costume. He didn't learn anything from the first one. The nipples and the dildo Batmobile from Forever weren't bad enough. So that was a thing. And then the one other thing is they did have issues during production with people trying to steal stuff off the set or trying to sneakily take pictures. They halted production in fall of '96 for a while because Mr. Freeze's blaster prop disappeared from the set. I don't think they ever figured out. I mean, someone probably knows where it is now, but I don't think they ever figured out exactly how it made its way off the set to begin with. There was also, they had a police investigation as a result of that, and they raided the home of some film memorabilia collector who I guess ended up in possession of it.
He bought it off the black market?
Yeah, something like that. They opened a police investigation. They ended up finding it in this dude's home.
It's like Harry Knowles or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding, Harry Knowles, if you listen to this podcast. I know you follow us on Instagram, so I'm just kidding.
Apparently, they caught extras trying to take pictures on the set because paparazzi were offering people 10 grand a pop for pictures of Schwarzenegger in the costume. And I mean, it's a lot of money now, but 10 grand in '97 would have bought you most of a pretty decent car.
Of a pretty decent car.
Right? So yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. The two extras were arrested after they tried to steal footage from somebody. But there's going to be more later when we get to the reviews, but that's basically the production shot.
Thank you very much, Steve. Let's talk about Batman and Robin, which of course opens with the classic Batman logo. A little bit of intro credits, right? But the thing that caught my attention, and I don't think I mentioned this in our Batman Forever review, but the thing that caught my attention about this movie is the music, the climb, the orchestral score that goes along with Batman and Robin. This is something I actually really like. So I'm going to give this movie some credit in some places. I think the theme for the Schumacher Batman movies is really good. It's not quite the same as the Danny Elfman one. It's not as good, I know, right? That's associated with the animated series as well, the classic dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. But this one is pretty good. It's a good alternative, and it gives me that Batman feel, probably from nostalgia. We get the Batman and Robin logo graphic on the screen in red, right? And then it tilts and it flies toward us. So far, the beginning of this movie, I'm like, all right, this is pretty good, right? Before we see any actors on screen, before any lines of dialogue, I think the very beginning is really good, but it very abruptly goes downhill, doesn't it, Jonathan?
A lot of butt cheeks, man. A lot of butt cheeks in the first 15 seconds. Up until the point where you start getting into the movie, you have Batman and Robin, and you're getting these cut scenes of them gearing up, getting ready to do stuff. And I don't even understand why. Why did anybody, maybe Mr. Schumacher can answer this if you're listening.
He's dead.
He likes butts.
Then he's listening with Jesus. Please send me a sign.
Send Jonathan a sign.
Why the butt cheeks? Why the emphasis on the butt cheeks of Robin and Batman, and then go do other things, and then back to butt cheeks again? Like,
so many
why
butts.
does anybody give a shit about George Clooney's ass that much? Is that really what it is?
Well, Steve, am I going to speak out of turn if I give what answer you know I'm going to give to this question?
No, go ahead.
Schumacher is gay. So I think
Was.
Yeah, it was.
when Schumacher was alive,
So he's not with Jesus.
he was a gay man. No, he depending on what religion you believe in,
Right.
he may or may not be with Jesus now. So I think the gay subtext in this movie and in both of his Batman movies is always present, but you see it right away, right? This is
that
like
explains the nipples.
gay rubber butts is what I think of when I think of this movie. That's one of the things. And the nipples, right? Steve talked about the nipples. He talked about them being more pronounced. And I know exactly what he means because in Batman Forever, there are little nips on the batsuit.
I remember.
In
Clearly.
this movie, though, there's defined areolas.
Yeah.
So there's an
They
area.
even had like braille on them. Like,
Yes.
you could see the nipple, the areola bumps.
He's like, I want the viewer to be able to imagine that they could reach in and feel the texture of the nipples, and you can, you know?
So now the George Clooney selection makes more sense because I mean he was. Anybody has to admit George Clooney is a good-looking guy.
He's a good-looking dude.
He has been for the better part of his career. What 40 years of acting now?
Even as an older guy, yeah, he's like a hot dad.
He's a dapper guy,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, that makes a little bit of sense.
Now, I just want to say, for points of clarification, I am totally fine with gayness. One, people being gay, great, good on you. Gay stuff in movies, I'm all for it. You know, I watched some gay movies. Call Me by Your Name, gayest movie I've ever seen. Great movie, you know? But it just doesn't feel right in a Batman movie. Like, unless it's about like Robin exploring his gayness or something, which I would probably not be okay with because he's not gay in the comics.
Yeah.
So,
But
Hasn't there always been like a discussion of like gay undertones for Robin?
I mean, but like the people interjecting that always seem like such weirdos to me, and they always claim that Bruce was grooming Dick, and I'm like, dude, you got to really be thinking along some very perverse lines to read these comic books and then be like, yeah, this older guy's grooming this teenager for sex.
He's talking about the Adam West show. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
And
well,
there is some gay stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like subtle, like tongue in cheek. I think.
Yeah.
They're either trying to be funny or they don't realize it, and it's just like a Tommy Wiseau situation in that show. I think. But also, the ambiguously gay duo did not help.
No, it really didn't. It really didn't. Somebody in the last year or two, Heritage Auctions, I think last year, auctioned off one of Clooney's suits from the film, and somebody paid $40,000 for it. So somebody's got a $40,000 bat suit with nipples worn by a guy who should never have been cast as Batman in a Batman movie that never should have been made.
Do you remember the first piece of dialogue in this movie, Steve?
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
I want a car.
I want a car.
You little fucking brat. He is a brat this entire goddamn movie. Bruce should just beat the shit out of him and leave him somewhere. There's actually one of my favorite Frank Miller moments ever in, I think that graphic novel is called Batman and Robin All-Stars or something like that. There's a moment in the Batmobile where Dick starts going off like that, and Batman is just like, motherfucker, I will beat the living shit out of you. That's what should have happened. Just like, you know what? You've already got a motorcycle. You can just ride the motorcycle or shut the fuck up. I'm the one paying for all this, by the way. And then he's like, chicks dig the car. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not the only thing about Bruce they like.
And that's a carryover line, I think, from not the first movie, but from Batman Forever about chicks dig the car.
Are you trying to get under my cape, Doctor?
A girl can't live by psychoses alone.
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
And he's driving a new Batmobile in this, which leads into the Alfred's first line, which is try to bring this one back in one piece. And I'm immediately like, motherfucker, you know damn well Riddler's the one who blew the last one up. What are you giving Bruce shit for?
Hey, can I give a shout out to Alfred for always being the OG, man? Like, he seriously, like, makes these movies regardless of who is Batman or Robin or whoever's little gay boyfriend or whatever. Alfred always comes through, man. And it doesn't matter how big or how small, he is always there. Even on his deathbed, man, he is there.
So these 90s and 80s Batman movies, right? So the first two Burton ones and the second two Schumacher movies, same actor, playing Alfred, Michael Gough, legend.
Yeah, he is a legend. He's probably the best actor in the movie.
Good Alfred, dude. I love this dude. You're absolutely right.
Beastly eyebrows. Yeah, dude.
This
He's
dude's
got
legit.
it going on.
He's so perfect as Alfred. You know, and I know there's a lot of interpretations of Alfred. Some are more physical than others, but obviously this Alfred's like on the older side.
I like Michael Caine, and that version of Alfred doesn't bother me, but I've never really thought of that as being Alfred. Like the former adventurer who was searching for jewels in India or whatever that story he tells Bruce is. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like Alfred to me.
Nah, he read that out of like an old adventure novel. Like,
well, yeah, it seems like something he took out of like the Lost World or something.
Yeah,
you know?
there were giant dinosaurs, Bruce.
I do like that they dive into his life a little bit in this movie when they talk about his brother Wilfred. I guess we'll get down to that later.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see like Alfred get a little more credit besides like, you know, spitting out his pate.
It's fishy swell, sir.
It's too bad he had to spend so much time on screen with what should have been Barbara Gordon.
Alfred, we see something as strange with him as Batman and Robin leave the cave, but we'll come back to that. There's a new villain in town, Steve.
Ugh.
He calls himself Mr. Freeze.
Batman, a new villain has commandeered the Gotham Museum. He's frozen the Antiquities Wing. He's turned the security guards into blocks of ice. He's calling himself Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
And I mean, we get all this information from Commissioner Gordon on that little screen in the Batmobile. This is an absolute throwback to the Adam West show. The tiny little screen in the dash. And a much, 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 much inferior alternative to Penguin in a tiny little bouncy car telling Batman he's going to kill everyone in the city.
Not even in the same fucking league.
Right? You know, Batman, there's a new villain in town. He calls himself Mr. Freeze. It's just the whole thing. And he was fine as Gordon and the other ones, but this is awful. It's the first 5 minutes is all cringe, and it's just to set up for the rest of the 2 hours being. This was a cringe Sunday. This movie,
Commissioner Gordon was cringe this whole entire movie,
right?
Yeah.
They gave him a few like quote big scenes in this movie, which he never really got in the other movies, and I don't think it works very well. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Jonathan, we meet Mr. Freeze, the top billed actor of this movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, got a cool $25 million for this role on their $125 million budget. That's a big piece of the pie, if you ask me.
And it was the second Batman movie ever where the villain got top billing after '89, where Nicholson got it, and it was also the second instance where what they paid one of the actors playing a villain was a bigger story than the rest of the movie, because it had been the same thing with, I think Korey got $20 million to be Riddler for forever, and it was a huge news piece. Yeah.
So now they're just really paying out the ass for their main villain actor.
When Nicholson got a piece of the royalties on '89, it was the only way they could get him to do the part.
Now
that dude
that
made so
is
much
a good
money.
deal.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, he's stated over the years that he made, I think, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars off being in that movie.
That's what you want, a piece of the royalty. It's kind of like what David Prowse was kind of promised and then fucked out of. Anyway, that's Star Wars stuff. That's for another time. Jonathan, Mr. Freeze, what do you think, man?
The Iceman cometh.
Please, show some mercy.
Mercy? I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
You know, I really think that Arnold was the right character for this kind of guy. Especially when they get into the backstory, when he was actually Dr. Freeze, Dr. Fries Freeze.
Yeah,
so sort
Dr.
of
Fries.
Fries. So it was like a little bit of an Austrian background on the doctor. And then you got Arnold's background, and it kind of jives together.
Oh, I see where you're going. Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of works for me. But then, you know, he's kind of a unique character because as the story develops, you really understand where his intents and purposes are for why this character even exists. But it's kind of an over-the-top costume. The makeup was pretty cool, I guess. I think there were a lot of really good close-up shots to Arnold's face that depicted his makeup really well. There were like shots of where his teeth were starting to turn blue or colors that I think they did really well too. That was cool. The thing that I didn't like though was he had his freeze gun, right? Why was his freeze gun making shotgun cocking sounds? Like when he's getting, all he literally has to do, it's electronic. All he has to do is pull the trigger and it goes. He would just have his gun in his hand, one hand only, not on the like handle and trigger part. And all of a sudden in the movie, you would just hear very cartoonish shotgun cocking sounds. And it was really like, that was not necessary. I didn't need to hear that.
I have a feeling that was an extension of letting toy designers design the gun. They probably wanted something kids could cock or pump when they used the toy version.
Cock pump.
Right? But man,
wow, Schumacher.
Right? Man, respectfully, Jonathan, you and I are very much on opposite sides of this. I really hated that character. I hated Schwarzenegger as that character. Like the part about the wife in the tube is that carry over from the comics and the cartoon. That's fine.
Heart of Ice.
Yeah. But man, I mean, he's obnoxious. Even though I like Schwarzenegger in a lot of movies, he is obnoxious. He spends every role yelling in that Austrian accent. Can only understand about a third of what he's saying. He looks obnoxious. That character was supposed to be skinny. Like, I don't know. Plus, he's now all of a sudden he's this triathlete doctor with a PhD and giant biceps. And, you know, in the moment you, like, later on in the film, a scene we'll get to, you see Jesse Ventura, because he's got to appear in everything Schwarzenegger's in the 90s. And I'm just like, oh, so it's Predator. We're doing Predator. That's fine. These guys can all just be big bodybuilders then.
I wish we were doing Predator.
Right? Me too.
Hey, you also can't deny Mr. Freeze's dad jokes, man. Like through the entire movie, every single line was a pun about ice or being cold or chilling or whatever. I don't know, man. I'm kind of a sucker for that shit. It's so stupid that I enjoy it.
I kind of know what you mean, Jonathan, because I've said that this movie is so bad it's good. And after watching it this time, I realized that's true to an extent. When the third act starts, it's just bad.
Yeah,
but leading up to that, it is kind of so bad it's good with these dumbass jokes.
I'm glad you guys had a more because for me it just went from bad to bad to bad. Like I never had a moment where I was like, oh, that was funny. There's a couple of things I can pick out I actually sort of liked, but not that.
Yeah, and I don't want to say like liked in an earnest sense on my side,
what you mean. Right.
But like for example, intro Mr. Freeze. He's in this museum, right? So there's like dinosaur statues, there's art pieces. His ice puns do not fucking stop.
No, it's
First,
awful.
he says, the Iceman cometh. Then he says, I'm cold to your pleas of mercy. Then he says,
in this universe, there's only one absolute. Everything freezes.
This is the most ridiculous one of all of them.
Right, that is not the one absolute in the universe.
Right?
So, like, they're just getting desperate. The writing is getting worse and worse and worse. The direction is bad because obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger just up there hamming it up, yelling. That's direction. That's the choice.
Oh, yeah.
Then the lines in the script don't help him. So, Joel Schumacher...
They should have squeezed in a get to the chopper.
It'd have to be something cold related, though.
Right? Get to the ice chopper.
You know...
it's not a tumor.
We also do get our sweet double feature here where we get Batman and Robin on ice.
Oh my God, was that awful?
Oh yeah. It was super awful, but it was like a bonus, man.
They slide down the dinosaur's tail. It's so stupid.
The floor is frozen, and Mr. Freeze has his little minions come out to attack Batman and Robin.
The hockey team from hell.
Yeah, the hockey team from hell.
No.
And so because
Casey
the floor...
Jones ripoffs.
Yeah, right. So they're all on skates trying to beat up Batman, and like these guys think that they have a chance. No way. But that's where we get that stupid little click-clack scene we were talking about earlier, where Batman clicks his feet together, as does Robin, and blades come out of the bottom of their boots.
Now, I watched that scene, and I went back and I watched it again, because I don't have slow-mo, but I paused it, and I paused it, and I paused it. The effect of the blades coming out of the shoes looks really good. It's very seamless.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't bad, but the idea is ridiculous.
The idea is awful.
Going back
It's
to Jonathan,
so dumb,
right?
so dumb.
And
that nobody's running around with freaking ice blades in their boots, man.
I definitely no argument between you and me about that. Like, why Batman has never had ice skates built into his boots before? Why would he have ice skates built into his boots? And how do the blades fit in there without cutting into his feet while he's wearing them?
How do they come out? That's the thing that doesn't make sense. Why does he have them? Here's a better idea. Right, so he faces off against Mr. Freeze here. Him and Robin, they lose because they're out of their element, let's say. Then they work on upgrading their tech, and then they have that.
Yeah,
that might be better.
When I would have liked, like, one thing Nolan did pretty nicely is trying to explain, you know, that the bits that Bruce chose for his suit, aside from the mask, were really like a tactical suit, and it was sort of designed for soldiers, and it kind of made sense. It's something that he would retrofit.
Like a lightweight body armor.
Yeah. And there are military boots and non-military boots that are designed for work in frozen climates where you might have to walk on ice. They're not studded necessarily, but they at least give you some better traction. You can just introduce Batman needs a different pair of boots. Oh, I can source boots for this. Those actually exist. Like,
I mean, that would be like in the Nolan universe. But even in this one, the skates coming out, it would be way more acceptable if he didn't just have them and he developed them for this purpose because of this villain.
Even studs that pop out would have been more realistic. At least studs you can figure will fit into like a 2-inch thick sole.
Right.
You know?
That would be like something you'd see in the Matt Reeves version.
Right.
Yeah, he could have made like, you know, just some cleats to give him better grip on the ice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, which brings me to something else. Let me ask you guys another question. So, blatantly obvious starting in this scene, we get the soaring and flying of Batman and Robin all over the place. Ooh, yeah. Obviously, they're on, you know, ropes and wires and all that stuff. But like, it's like they just didn't even try to make it look like they weren't on wires.
Right. Yeah.
They were just like, oh, this is picking me up now and moving me 40 feet across the room and dropping me down. Sweet. Like, it was just such a lack of production quality. Was this intended, or is this like supposed to speak to some magical skill that Robin has that he can just soar randomly? Like, what in the fuck, dude?
So that's one of the problems with this intro scene and something you see throughout the whole movie on the technical side. There is way too much wire work. It's way overused.
It's awful.
And it takes you out. The physics of this movie don't make any sense to you, and they have no meaning to you because of the heavy use of wire work. And that's a fucking problem. Not only that, the cinematography is fucking awful.
It is.
This movie is 50% Dutch angles.
Yeah.
I've never seen a movie that has a heavy use of Dutch angles and came out saying that was good.
I don't know what a Dutch angle is, but this movie is a Dutch oven.
Sure. It is. Oh, yeah, because I think he thinks it looks like a twisted comic book panel. You know, sometimes you get a panel in a book that's at an odd angle. I thought Schumacher thought it looked like that, but there's...
Anytime someone has tried to make a comic book movie and make it look like a comic, it has failed. It's fell on its fucking face.
All right, I have a feeling we'll either agree or completely disagree about this, but that's one of the reasons I want to review Banner's Hulk. Because
I knew you were going to say, I hate that shit.
I see, okay, I had a feeling you'd feel that way, but the comic panels in that didn't bother me. I thought it was at least interesting.
The only one that works for me in that way is The Warriors, which I think is the director's cut.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They redid it with the panel cut. You're right. That's a cool one. I don't know. I'm not saying the Banner Hulk was perfect, because it definitely isn't, but it didn't bother me in that. But in any case, there's one moment in, I think it's Returns, right after he's been on the rooftop with Selina, where he turns his cape into a rigid form and sort of glides off back down to his car. And even that was a little borderline, but it kind of worked, and Burton only really did that the once with that particular effect, and so it was fine. And you're right, in this, it doesn't work at all. It's always goofy, and they did way too much of it.
So a lot of use of wire work. Another thing that you touched on, Steve, is Batman is apparently wearing soaps. Remember soaps, Jonathan?
Dude, you and I had soaps, like, must have been 4th or 5th grade all through junior high, and we soaped everything, man.
Dude, Steve, if you don't remember, soaps were the shoes that were like skater shoes.
Yeah, you could grind on them.
But they had a plastic plate on the bottom so you could grind.
And they were even like replaceable. You could take the screws.
It was
swap them out.
The people who invented them must have been inline skaters, because a few years before I was a big inline skater in the 90s, and it had become pretty common for them to build a grind rail into the into inline skates. I think Rollerblade did it first, and then a couple other companies copied them. And a lot of them did the same thing, where there was an interchangeable plate there, so as you wore it out, you could use it on inline skates. It was kind of cool. On shoes, I was always like, I don't know if this is cool. I kind of liked it at the time, but as I got older, I'm like, this seems weird. Like,
yeah, it became uncool eventually, and I kind of got rid of them. But Batman straight up grinds a brontosaurus.
He does.
To get down it. So it's like he's wearing rollerblades or soaps. It's so stupid. It's not as bad as the wire work, at least, but things just like really escalate in this showdown with Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is freezing everything. He makes his escape.
Why is ice even his weapon? I mean, that's kind of a shortcoming of the character in general. You get like Scarecrow wants to dust the city with a hallucinogen that's going to drive everyone nuts because he's a lunatic and that's just what he wants. And Joker's going to fucking just blow shit up and set things on fire because he's a lunatic and that's just what he wants. But Mr. Freeze is like, yeah, I got this fucking ice gun with the shotgun pump on it, and I'm gonna freeze some shit. And eventually I'll have frozen so much shit that the city will give me a bunch of money to like do my research with. Which leads me to a question I've asked about other films is like, where is the federal government in this situation? And where are all the other... Do you really think you can take over Gotham and like Superman won't eventually show up? Like if Batman can't deal with this, someone else is going to show up.
Superman exists in this movie.
Yeah, and they got the worst line. This is the way Superman works alone. Yeah, well, yeah, fine. That and he's got actual superpowers.
Then explain Crypto.
Right?
His dog.
That's great.
Sir, we've determined that was a cock pump on his gun.
Absolutely.
Steve, Mr. Freeze has a rocket attached to his car.
The rocket.
You mean that big dildo rocket?
Yeah.
This is another one. This guy needs money for his research, but he had money to build this fucking rocket? And why a rocket? Are you joking? Who wrote this? Like, goddamn.
Akiva Goldsman.
Oh, God, yeah, it's true.
He's written some other good stuff.
Yeah,
Didn't he
he has.
write like A Beautiful Mind or something?
Yeah, he has written, and I can't remember his whole resume, but yeah, he's written some pretty good stuff aside from this. Is the case with a lot of these people. They've done other good things, and even Schumacher made some okay movies, but not the Batman stuff.
You're right. Absolutely. Everyone involved has probably done something really good, including the actors, but there's a rocket. This rocket is shooting up out of the museum into the sky. It's just going straight up. Presumably,
No sense.
It's going to end up in space, I guess, Jonathan. Batman gets trapped inside, doesn't he? This is like a classic Adam West, you're trapped, what are you going to do, Batman situation.
Has Batman struck out? Is Robin cool for good? Can no one save our noble pair of human popsicles? Answers tomorrow night, same time, same channel. One word of warning. By watching, you too can lose your cool.
Yeah, he was definitely trapped inside, and Mr. Freeze was able to freeze Batman's hands to the inner walls of the rocket and basically explain to him that once they hit 30,000 feet, Batman's heart was going to freeze and he would die.
So that's another ticking clock, which is classic to the Adam West show. So
Sure.
we can kind of see the connective thread there.
Yeah.
Not that I think that's a good thing. It's just there.
So Batman's got a cape he can fly through the air on, and he's got ice skates built into his shoes, but he doesn't have anything he can jump out of a flying platform with, like a small parachute. This makes a ton of sense. Why doesn't he just glide out of the rocket on his cape?
He didn't want him to get away. But he knew he had to trust that Robin had his back, which Robin did. He was attached to the outside of the rocket trying to make his way in. So what was weird, though, is so how did Robin even get inside without popping an emergency door? And
so they actually show that. So Freeze hops out of this. He apparently, with his 300-pound metal suit, is able to jump out of this rocket as long as he has some little plastic wings on his back. As long as he got this little wing set, he's okay to jump out. When he jumps out, though, there's an opening, I think. And I think that's what Robin gets in through.
Copy. All right. Makes sense. So what doesn't make sense,
the rest of it,
is imagine you're in an airplane and they have the emergency exit doors that you pull the lever and then they kind of just come off of the plane, right? Okay. So how is it that conveniently there are two of them directly on opposite sides of each other? So Batman can have one door, Robin can have the other door. They pop the doors, and let's say they're pretty damn close to 30,000 feet. They end up using these emergency doors as like snowboards through the freaking ozone layer. God, I don't get it. Dumb. Like how do you surf down 30,000 feet on an emergency exit door?
That is a really good question. It must weigh hundreds of pounds. It's made out of steel. And also, it's just occurring to me now, didn't they start off the first one getting craned up in the air in something while they were chasing Two-Face? Isn't that how they opened the first one? When he's robbing a bank?
Something like that.
And they end up in the safe, and the safe gets dragged into the air. So they just basically wrote the same intro twice, except this time it's a rocket. Fucking lazy.
Yeah, lots of callbacks to Adam West Batman. Again, I don't think they really work here, but one thing I do like is that Robin has a little like Star Trek phaser that is like a heat laser.
Oh, another terrible gadget.
Another terrible gadget. I actually don't mind this gadget. Like, I think it looks pretty cool. I mean, would they have it? I don't know. But like, I just like the way it looks, the fact that he has this little laser gun.
That thing came in clutch several times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and little bat heaters.
Little bat heaters, another one. Why does he have bat heaters? That makes less sense than the ice skates. Why is he carrying these around? And this is all his first outing against Freeze, so there's no way he knew what to expect. Like,
yeah, he learned about it in the car.
When Commissioner Gordon was talking to him terribly for 18 seconds, he just knew, I better go back to the Batcave and get all this stuff.
You see what I'm saying about Batman and the gadgets, dude? How the hell is he carrying around 1,000 pounds of gadgets everywhere he goes?
It used to be just what he could get in the utility belt. It was like a respirator and an emergency line and like 4 or 5 other things. And
totally feasible. Totally feasible. At one point in this movie, he comes out with a miniature circular saw. Right. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, dude?
Like, I'm willing to believe, going back to what you were saying, Korey, I'm willing to believe that Bruce, with all his resources, found out what he needed, then went back to the Batcave and figured out a way to engineer it. At least give me that. But the fact that he's carrying all this random, pointless shit with him all the time, it's like, first of all, where is it all being kept? You don't have that much room on your suit. Secondly, there's no way you knew you needed all this. It's ridiculous that on a normal basis in Gotham, Batman's got heaters and ice skates and an ice mobile, and like, no.
This is a testament to how bad this movie is, because if the movie was good,
you wouldn't care.
These kind of things are forgiven.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear about that to anyone that's listening. I don't think we're just complaining about Batman in general, but when a movie or a piece of media represents a character so poorly, it makes you question these things, and that's how you know it's not working.
Especially with a comic book movie, because you go into it understanding that there's a huge amount of suspension of disbelief just to get through the movie, even if it's good. So, yeah, absolutely.
Right, like I don't question these things in The Batman.
Right.
Like they just seem to work well enough to where I can believe them.
Yeah, you can gloss through it fine.
And the story connects well enough, and there's less just dumb shit. Anyway, back to this dumb shit. Of course we know what happens when they get back down to the ground where Robin gets frozen, but I was never comfortable with that scene where Robin dives at Mr. Freeze and gets frozen.
Oh, yeah.
Because he dives, like, if he wasn't frozen, he would have just fell on the ground. Like, the dive that he makes toward Freeze is not like he's about to tackle him. He's not even close to tackling him. He's just going to fall on the ground. So let's say he did that same dive, Freeze didn't freeze him, Robin would have just fell down.
Like, I don't know whether any of the people involved in this production are even aware of the fact that Death in the Family existed. But, like, if you read through it, like, that's sort of how it culminates. It's sort of how they get it to the culmination is it's Jason. It's Jason Todd, because Dick's already moved on. Jason gets increasingly more and more aggressive and less willing to listen to what Bruce is telling him as the story goes on. And it eventually culminates with him deciding he can deal with Joker by himself, and it gets him killed. And, like, at least there was a progression. In this, it's just Dick being a brat. Like, just shut up already. I'm sick of you. Yeah.
So you're talking about, after he gets frozen, Batman can't go after Mr. Freeze anymore. Yeah. He has to now save Dick. They go back to the cave, and they have their kind of first interaction where there's some distrust and there's some issues between the dynamic duo's dynamic.
Right.
What happened to his wife?
Nobody knows for sure. She's presumed dead. Freeze needs extreme cold to survive. His cryosuit uses diamond-enhanced lasers to keep him at 0 degrees.
But let's go to South America. We later learned this is South America, Jonathan, but in South America, there's a laboratory far away from Gotham City. Dr. Pamela Isley and Dr. What's the other guy's name?
Woodrow, I think.
Dr. Woodrow. They're doing some experiments.
But can we call him Clamp?
Yeah.
I'm going to call him Clamp.
Mr. Clamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the preferred role for him.
How's it going over there in South America, Jonathan? What are they up to?
Well, this is where we get our first introduction to Beatrix Kiddo. And I'm sorry. I mean, Uma Thurman is playing
The
Dr. Yes. The deranged Dr. Isley here, who is just really, man, they really like downplay her. She's like very disheveled and her hair is tore up. And obviously, of course, it's there for the polar opposite of when she turns into her later character where she's smoking hot. But she's like a botanist, I guess, who's just very plant oriented and save the plants and tree hugger hippie.
This is what Fox News thinks that liberals are.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody caught Tucker Carlson running snippets from this movie claiming it was some Antifa protest or something.
Yeah.
This is what the trans people are doing to us,
This is
everyone.
what the liberals want.
Right, the trans people and the plants taking over.
My mutant plants have the strength of the deadliest animals. Once you have frozen mankind, these babies will overrun the globe. And we shall rule them.
The Europeans have discovered that the real threat to human civilization is not global warming. It never was global warming. The real threat to people is global cooling, otherwise known as winter.
Stop global warming. Start global cooling. Make the world a giant icebox. I like it.
Trump gave a speech a few days ago where he went off on fucking windmills again. Something about them interfering with planes and oceans. These people are detached.
Go on, Jonathan.
Well, all right. So Dr. Isley keeps hearing these screams, and she's never been allowed into the lab. And so she finally gets in there, and they find out this is where the other Dr. Woodrow is doing some experiments for the government on people. And this is where we find out the development of Bane.
Bane.
This version of Bane in a fucking inflatable balloon costume.
Yeah.
Steve's favorite villain. One of Steve's favorites villains, at least, right, Steve?
Yeah,
Bane.
absolutely. So angry about the way this happened.
Steve, how is this Bane different from your classic comic book Bane?
Oh, God. So, short and skinny, the Bane in the comic books was this just psychotic, drug-riddled monster of a human being whose only real goals were to kill Bruce and cause destruction. He's essentially a terrorist. He was a child of a South American prison. He was used as an experiment. The venom is essentially, in his case, both a steroid and a painkiller, and it's got to be constantly run through his system, not only to maintain the physique, but to stop him from essentially going into bodily shutdown.
Yeah, withdrawals to an extreme degree.
Right. And at the same time, it's turning him into this deranged monster. I mean, even aside from the muscles it gives him, it's obviously, he was clearly unstable to begin with, but the steroid is obviously making him increasingly more and more unhinged as it goes on. In the comic books, he creates a situation where they sort of aped part of this for Nolan's version. He busts into Arkham and just opens the entire asylum up, lets everybody out, knowing that Bruce is going to have to spend a huge amount of time trying to track all these people down. He waits in the shadows while Bruce spends days without sleeping, trying to track down all the bad guys that got out of Arkham. And Bane helps sets it up so that Bruce has to culminate this hunt with a fight against, I think it was Penguin and Joker, and that almost kills him. I mean, and by the time Bruce is done getting everybody back to Arkham, he hasn't slept in days, he's physically busted, he can barely stand, let alone fight anybody. And that's the moment Bane picks to have a confrontation with him, which leads to just Bruce getting beaten almost to death and having his spine broken.
Very famous cover of Batman getting his back broken.
Yeah.
Recreated in the Dark Knight Rises Christopher Nolan movie.
Right. And in this, he's, I guess, a former murderer who you see in his original form on screen for about 8 seconds before they strap him into a chair and literally turn him into a balloon. It looks like a person wearing an inflated Muscle Man. Like if you imagine what a 6-year-old wearing a Muscle Man Halloween costume looks like. That's basically what you get here. And they paint him this like sickly green color, and they give him all these veins through his arms and a mask that he doesn't really seem to need. It's like a carryover from the original character design that doesn't really do anything. And he's
unexplained mask,
right?
Inexplicably there.
And in the comic books, one of the things that made him kind of frightening as a villain is, even though he's becoming progressively more unhinged and violent as the story goes on, he's also clearly really intelligent and is able to set things up in a way where he can fuck with Bruce. And in this, he's just this grunting gorilla that does whatever Ivy tells him.
No intelligence in this movie. Everything is a one-word, one-line with him.
Right?
Yeah.
That's most of it moaning.
You know what he looks like? I got the Street Fighter Zangief vibes from his look in this movie.
Right.
The bruiser look, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like huge and dumb.
And they made him so strong he can pull steel doors off their hinges, which is way beyond what they did with him in the comic. He did some crazy stuff in the comic, but not that.
I just want to add to that a little bit. The cool thing about Bane in the comic is that he's one of many villains that faces down Batman that's kind of similar to Batman.
Yeah.
But like on the evil side.
Right.
So Bane grew up under hardship. His parents died. And he learned at a young age that he has to overcome the concept of fear. Just like Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Bane had a vision, just like Bruce Wayne, of a giant bat that represents fear. Except Bane didn't don the Batman persona. He basically took over the prison that he was in, or became like the head guy, killed a bunch of people, but he also worked on training his mind. Yeah. So he became like physically strong like Bruce did, training different martial arts, traveling the world, except Bane did it all in the confines of his prison. And Bane also worked on like meditation and like really sharpening his mental capacity, just like Bruce. So there's kind of some parallels there.
And the way they depict the mask in the original comics is a lot. They've redesigned it a bit over time. It's a lot like Rorschach almost from Watchmen, in the sense that it's just this painted piece of cloth kind of pulled, stretched over his face. And it's this kind of frightening, almost wrestler's mask. But you know,
it is like a luchador mask.
Yeah, and he's only really using it to cover his real face. And it's just kind of like an afterthought stretched over his head. Like, yeah.
I think there was some aspect of Bane being a wrestler too.
Yeah.
Although I don't remember if that's like the original continuity or if that was like something for later.
Maybe the mask is what contains the recirculation pump for the steroid and things that have to like flow through his body.
Yeah, and in the comics, you're right. They gave him, the mask was sort of attached to the apparatus he wore around his head, and it was connected to a tank on his back that also went into his shoulders, and like, yeah, it was part of the recirculation. And yeah.
Hey, one other thing. I know it's way, way wild, but you were talking about Batman having his back broken. Yeah. It reminded me of this like early 90s post-fight interview with Mike Tyson when he's talking about, my back is broken.
Spinal.
And he's like, what? Excuse me? Can you talk about that? And he's like, yeah, spinal. It made me think of that.
Dude, you could just watch a compilation of Mike Tyson interviews and they're so fucking funny like that.
His children.
I broke my back.
Mike, were you really sick this week? What was the problem?
I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What, a vertebrae or what portion?
Spinal.
Yeah, so good. You could totally edit all of that out, but it just...
way.
That Batman
stays.
scene reminded me.
We could like dub Christian Bale. Like with Mike Tyson, like someone goes to talk to him and he's like, spinal.
But you know, one thing, there's a moment where Bruce and Bane fight in this, and when we get there, I want to touch on something there. Yeah.
Okay. Steve, maybe you can finish off the story with Dr. Isley and Clamp, as we're calling him, and Bane here. Like, how does this whole situation play out?
So Isley is working in this facility trying to she's trying to mix animal DNA with plant DNA in order to create a species of poisonous, aggressive plant that can fight for itself. And Woodrow Clamp is in another lab trying to develop a super soldier serum, which is a concept that comes and goes through comic books like water.
It's ever present in superhero comics.
Right.
It never fucking stops, too.
No, and absolutely not.
Good thing he didn't take notes from Hitler.
Right.
It's way off.
Isley Ivy eventually discovers that Woodrow was allowing her to use lab space in this facility because he's been stealing parts of her research for his own. And he eventually succeeds in creating a formula that works. And when we first see him showing this off, it's for the benefit of a group of what you can only assume are like foreign military dictators. A couple of them look South American. One of them, cliche, is obviously a Saudi guy with the headdress on. I don't know the correct name for that. I'm sorry, but it's so he's showing off that he can create this giant super soldier because he wants to sell it to one of them for the highest bidder, or he wants to sell the chemical itself off to the highest bidder, and the whole thing doesn't go very well for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he kills Dr. Isley. He
thinks he does.
But she is resurrected because he basically just like pushes her down and throws a bunch of chemicals on her. She sinks into the earth and then is similarly resurrected as Poison Ivy, looking way hotter.
This is one of two moments, the other being the Bane fight, that I draw a big parallel to with another Batman movie because it really is the poor man's far less thoughtful and engaging Selina, where she gets pushed out of the window by Shrek and becomes Catwoman. Like, that was way, way cooler.
It's funny when we call Max Shrek,
right?
Because you could just replace him with the ogre Shrek.
That's true.
Ogre and Donkey, what an epic duo.
Batman versus Shrek the Ogre would be a really interesting crossover.
Jonathan, when we see Poison Ivy proper, what is her main power that you see right away, and what do you think of that?
She got me with her pheromones, and I was under her spell. So
you were watching the movie and you got the pheromones?
Yeah.
Pheromone dust.
Yeah.
Doesn't work on the cold-hearted.
Ridiculous.
Apparently, I'm not as cold-hearted as I thought.
Yeah.
Because it worked on me.
Warm-blooded man here.
Yeah. It's ridiculous enough, the whole idea is that he's got to be kept frozen. Like, there's no way a human body would work that way, but fine.
Right. Her other power is that she has a poison saliva. So if you make out with her, then you die.
Exactly. Which, she uses right away, and we see that. And that kind of makes her slightly a force to be reckoned with. She can use her feminine wiles or whatever. But we kind of see later on, like, how she can really use that with, like, the pheromones she can let out.
I mean, it's just like, I attract men with the pheromone, and then I give them a poison kiss, assuming I can get them to kiss me.
Right.
Yeah, I would probably risk that for Alicia Silverstone, but not for Uma Thurman.
I agree. I like Uma Thurman as an actress, and I think she's pretty in her own right, but I never found her that sexy. Like, Alicia Silverstone, for me, especially at that time, was definitely the bigger attraction.
Yeah, right in that Clueless era.
Oh, God,
man.
Right?
Settle down, simps.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and, you get the Beatrix Kiddo reference, and that's like, if you want to see Uma Thurman kick some ass, watch the Kill Bill movies. Those are awesome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I really felt like this was a good development role for her to end up moving into the Kill Bill roles later on, because she kind of got that villain kick-ass kind of person, like a good taste of it. And then she was just a totally different actress, and her physical abilities when she got to Kill Bill was just wild.
Right. No,
she was very impressive in those movies.
Yeah.
Less so in this movie, but I want to at least give her some credit as Ivy. She is acting like this is a fucking Adam West cartoon.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a jungle in here. I am nature's arm. Her spirit. Her will. Hell, I am Mother Nature. And the time has come for plants to take back the world so rightfully ours. Because it's not nice to fool with Mother Nature.
Yeah, I think she 100% embraced the cartoony, toyetic, over-the-top, 60s throwback Adam West. I mean, she's basically what Poison Ivy would have been if they'd included her in the 60s television series.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Yeah, absolutely.
Not that it's good.
No, it isn't. It isn't, but at least she got it correct, and that's a credit to her.
Mr. Freeze has a lair, which should be very obvious and easy to find for anyone looking, I think, but he's in, like, what, a former snow cone shop or something, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's another one. It's like a poor man's version of Penguin living in the old Penguin enclosure.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, yeah, it's an ice cream shop or a meat locker or some shit like that. I gotta tell you, I really came in and out of this movie. There were a few minutes at a time where I just wasn't paying any attention to it. I tried rewinding it on myself a few times as I went through, and it got to the point where it's just like, I'm not rewatching parts of this anymore.
Well, he has all his henchmen singing. He seems like a pretty fun-loving guy when he's not freezing people to death.
Why does he want them all? That does not fit that character at all.
No, it doesn't. It's so fucking stupid.
He should be more like Cobblepot's in the corner, you know, writing out all his documents. Freeze would be off in a lab somewhere researching. That's the whole point is his only motivation really is his research.
It's because it was Oktoberfest, yeah? That is why they are singing. But they also introduce his, I don't know, I don't want to call her a secretary, but his assistant.
Well, every henchman's got one of those women. Right?
Yeah, his right-hand lady, which was Vivica A. Fox. I mean, dude, what a star-studded cast. Really. You go back and think about it.
And she's beautiful, but I mean, why does that character need to be there? Yeah,
why is she there?
Yeah, character is point. There's no reason for that character. She doesn't do anything useful as a hench person.
No,
she isn't really there to be of any kind of functional support.
And she never comes back in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. She's just this woman that apparently Freeze is boinking, and it's like that's pretty shallow.
Well, like she wants to fuck him, but like he doesn't want to. You know,
he's not down.
It's strange.
He's not DTF.
Is it right? Is another weak correlation? Is much better. Burton did Selena and Oswald, and he was real perverse and into her, and she wasn't interested at all. That was way better.
Well, even back to the last Schumacher movie where you have Sugar and Spice, which are Two-Face's
Oh, that's
henchmen.
right. Yeah.
At least Drew Barrymore does something.
Yeah, they're functional.
She has one purpose in the movie, and it's to get Bruce into the machine, and then she can change out the little glow stick.
Right.
Say what you will about that. At least she does something.
No, and sorry, Jonathan, but real quick, it's the same issue. One of the same issues with Selena in Nolan's Batman is her, functionally speaking, she only exists to steal Bruce's fingerprints and then force him into a confrontation with Bane. Her only other usefulness is basically ending the movie.
So I was just thinking about the reason why Dr. Freeze or Mr. Freeze is not DTF. And that's because he still has hope for finding the cure for his wife, who's in her test tube, cryogenic freezing department. So that's why I think he still has that hope.
I'm going to go real blue with this for a second. If you want to edit this comment out, I won't blame you. But why would a woman want to put a man who's Sub-Zero inside of her?
First, I'll freeze your mouth closed. The cold will numb your pain.
Does not seem like a comfortable interaction.
Maybe she's got the itch.
The only way to seethe the burning sensation between her legs.
Right? I want to hump this dude who's 25 degrees. Like, why?
Like fucking a corpse.
Right?
Maybe she's into that kind of thing.
Yeah, she spends the rest of her time at the morgue.
Let's talk about real quick, Steve, the connection with Heart of Ice. Right, so they tried to lift some of that same storyline from Heart of Ice into this movie.
Yeah.
They didn't go with Adam West original recipe. They didn't go with the first appearance of Mr. Freeze in the comics from the 50s or whenever the fuck that was. They went with Heart of Ice because it's the well-beloved Mr. Freeze story. It was the reinvention of Mr. Freeze that works beautifully. Now, here's my take. I'll go to you in a sec, but the reason I think it works in Heart of Ice and not this movie, even though it's a similar story with the wife being frozen and him needing to do his research and him having been in this accident, the reason I think it works is because it's somber in Heart of Ice. He is a sad man.
Yeah.
And the episode starts off with his really fucking epic voice and just the situation that he's in. it's a really sad state of affairs what happened to him. He was wronged by this corporate guy at Wayne Enterprises who basically pulled the plug on his wife, and he basically wants revenge on this guy.
Yeah.
And he spends all his time alone just basically mourning that situation.
I failed you. I wish there were another way for me to say it. But I cannot. I can only beg your forgiveness and pray you hear me somehow. Someplace where a warm hand waits for mine.
So this one is way goofier. It's way lighter in tone. It doesn't have much of the somber aspects at all. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger yelling, doing ice puns. That's the reason I don't think that it hits the same emotional beats. But what about you?
No, I agree. I don't even mean this as an insult to Schwarzenegger, but part of the reason it doesn't work is because they cast a gigantic ape to play this fucking part. Like, he was fine as the Terminator. He was great in Predator. This was not the right role for him. Is the only reason I thought that Hopkins would have been a better fit for the part is because he would have been that Mr. Freeze, but he wouldn't have worked with the rest of the way they were trying to make this movie tonally. And yeah, you're right. He's not this thoughtful, introspective doctor who's consumed. The only two things Freeze cares about in the whole world are revenge and resurrecting his wife. It's all he wants, you know. And Freeze in this is more like he's this giant, loud, mountainous terrorist basically, and the wife is like a secondary thing, and he doesn't even really seem that bothered by it. He mostly just wants to run around freezing things. Like, he spends his spare time with his henchmen singing. Like, where the Freeze that I imagine would have spent those moments sitting next to his wife's cryotube, you know? Like,
right. There's no singing.
Yeah, but maybe it's just at this point in time, he's just had enough and he's acting out because he's hurt and deeply emotionally having issues because his wife he has failed her. He has not come up with the cure for her as of yet. He's out of money for research. And that's his whole campaign here, is to get the money for the rest of his research.
Then why is he cackling so much?
Right. If they had written him,
he's psychotic now.
I don't think you're totally off, but they need, for me, they needed to write him more seriously. If they'd written him as being there at the point where he's been at this for like 3 years already, and he's just at the point where he's really fucking becoming unhinged. Like, I could buy that, but I don't think they did it the right way.
They would have needed to do a Mr. Freeze with no jokes and totally cynical.
Yeah.
Or a totally joking guy without the emotional attachment to the wife.
Yeah.
Right. They try to do both.
Yeah, you can't do both.
You can't do both. It's another one of those elements them trying to mix. You can't have a sort of serious Batman that's also a toy ad and a throwback to the 60s TV show. It's too many things at once.
Yeah. And they already had a funny guy.
Right.
You know? They already had the Riddler.
Yeah.
And the Joker.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way Schumacher presents his villains, as cackling idiots. I mean, Ivy, they have the Riddler, Two-Face, Freeze. They're all just cackling fucking idiots.
As much as I deeply and sincerely love Batman 89, Nicholson as Joker has always been one of the most conflicting parts for me, but I think that's one area where he nailed it, is like, he's this cackling weirdo, but underneath you can tell this is a psychopath.
Well, it works for the Joker.
Yeah.
Not everyone is the Joker.
No, exactly. Even the Riddler was like not supposed to be that. Like, Jim Carrey Riddler was not Riddler. That was Riddler on Adderall.
Yeah, that was Jim Carrey.
Exactly.
On Adderall.
Right? Playing the Riddler, yeah.
So that was just regular Jim Carrey.
Right.
I mean, I do kind of like the part where Freeze is watching the home movie of him and his wife, and it's like, it's almost getting me there, reminding me of that very sensitive story, that personal story that he has with his wife, but they undercut it.
Excuse me, Chief. I got something here you might want to see. I hate when people talk during the movie.
because there's a joke right in the middle of it. Someone shows
Yeah.
up and he freezes that motherfucker.
You know what it kind of made me call back to was a scene pretty similar to that in Minority Report, where the crew's character is watching the video footage of I think that's Minority Report. Maybe I'm conflicting the movie.
He's watching footage of his son.
It's the son. You're right. It's the son. Yeah, and something like that. Even if you don't like the movie, that moment worked. I thought
Such a great movie, such a great moment, you
Yeah.
know. And he's really sad. And if you've lost someone, like, I feel like you can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like trying to put yourself back in that memory and reliving it, and maybe even talking to yourself like he's doing.
right.
Oof.
Just wrecked over it.
Yeah, that scene wrecked me.
Yeah.
Multiple
Yeah, absolutely.
times. I've gone back and watched that movie, and man, that's a tough one. But it's a very good movie.
No, it is. It is.
Steve, not Barbara Gordon, shows up to the Wayne Manor.
God, yeah. The wrong Barbara shows up to Wayne Manor. And boy, her first interaction with Robin is an interaction I do not think would fly today. And I'm not even trying to be king conservative, fuck the libs type person. I mean, I just don't think that interaction would work today. Like, she shows up at Wayne Manor. First of all, she's a bigger pain in the ass than Chris O'Donnell is. This chick is a problem from the moment she gets there. She knocks on the door, rings the doorbell, waits all of about 8 seconds before she starts climbing the wall, looking for some way to let herself in to a house that, by the way, you weren't really invited to. And Chris O'Donnell opens the door on her. The first thing he has to say is something like, "Oh, I hope you're for me." The fuck is that supposed to mean? Yeah, Bruce got you a teenaged hooker.
Yeah, how many girls does he have delivered to this house?
Right?
Yeah, dude. Dick's a little rapey in this
He
movie.
is. Right? And
He's
like,
horny.
fuck.
He's very
Yeah,
horny.
for sure.
I mean, not just with her. But
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a very horny movie.
Yeah, it's a horny movie for Dick.
Horny,
Horny
dick.
dick. There it is. Great minds think alike. But, yeah. So she arrives and explains that she's, in this version of Batman, she's Alfred's niece for whatever totally unnecessary reason. And he's apparently invited her.
So this is a different version of Barbara, obviously.
Yeah.
Barbara Pennyworth. You know, they changed some things in the movies, which sometimes I'm okay with, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, starting with not only is she not Gordon's daughter, but boy, is that story fucked in the comics. I mean, she literally takes a bullet.
Right.
Like,
and that's all in the Killing Joke for those that might be interested in reading it.
you should read it. You want to see what Barbara was supposed to be like. That's what Barbara was supposed to be like. Yeah, and so it's immediately established she's the niece. She claims at first she's visiting from school, but as the story goes on, we discover she's been kicked out.
Riding too many motorcycles at night.
Right? Yeah, the first thing she does after she gets there is steals one of Bruce's motorcycles out of his collection.
Yeah.
And goes racing with it.
And we'll talk about the race scene a little bit later.
Yeah,
'cause
there's
it
some other
appears-
touch points.
It
but
appears
yeah.
later in the movie, but, she shows up and she's causing mischief, kind of, like, low-key. Largely for, like, the next 40 minutes or so. She's largely forgotten, though.
She is a really, and I don't mean this against Alicia Silverstone, because she was really good in some roles, like in Clueless. But
Perfect casting for Clueless.
Perfect casting for Clueless. But man, I mean, she was just, the dialogue for her was terrible. The character didn't really serve much of a purpose. Yeah, not great. Not great.
It was not a good way to introduce her into
No.
the realm of Batman.
Right.
I want to talk about another small character that also makes an appearance in the previous movie, Batman Forever, and that's Gossip Gertie.
Good morning, Gotham. It's Gossip Gertie, reporting to you this morning direct from the Gotham Observatory, where billionaire Bruce Wayne, chairman of Wayne Enterprises and philanthropist, is about to make yet another legendary contribution to Gotham City.
Oh, God, yeah. That's
Gossip
another-
Gertie is a mainstay of these Schumacher movies, and I think the Adam West series. I don't remember exactly.
I think it was someone like that.
But she's kind of like the Gotham City reporter. She's played by Elizabeth Sanders, who is Bob Kane's wife, was Bob Kane's wife.
She's great playing the part, but it's a weird, pointless part.
It is. It's clear that like they wanted a role for Bob Kane's wife, I think, you know?
I don't want to insult him because I
No,
really
please do
respect
insult him.
But so they got they claimed that they had him on set for a huge percentage of the movie to supervise. And was he just senile as fuck at this point then? Because I can't imagine that this is the Batman movie Bob Kane wanted.
I mean, Bob Kane gets way too much fucking credit for Batman.
That's also true.
So like his creativity in the area of Batman, as far as I'm concerned, is very minimal compared to Bill Finger, the actual creator of Batman.
Finger should have been the one they had around.
But like no one really knew about Finger at this point.
You know what? It took me until right that moment with your comment to figure out what really bothered me about this. And that's what it is. If they wanted to do a throwback, why would you ever throw back? I understand some people like it and fine, but that 60s TV show is unwatchable. Even as a 10-year-old, I didn't like it.
I don't like it.
But what they should have done a throwback to is the 30s era detective comics. At least that would have been interesting. I would have loved to see noir Batman. In fact, they did a spin-off graphic novel that was a noir Batman. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Now we get to see around the area we meet Gossip Gertie. There's a telescope. There's some observatory that Bruce is funding. Blah, blah, blah. We'll see that later, of course, as we well know. I kind of want to move it forward a little bit, though, beyond that, to a charity event that is kind of orchestrated by Bruce Wayne / Batman to bring in Mr. Freeze. They want to get his attention. It's under the guise of it being some kind of like diamond charity, which is, on one hand, like the most homoerotic scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, surprisingly misogynistic.
He's with Elle McPherson, who's a character name I don't remember. And she's supposed to be his girlfriend in this one. And that's like, not that Chase Meridian Credit Card Bank of America from Forever was really much better, but like Bruce's girlfriends in the first two were Vicky Vale and Selena. And this is what they give him for this movie, this uninteresting bimbo, basically the supermodel. I don't even mean that against Elle McPherson as a person. I'm talking about the character. Like that.
What character?
Exactly. What was the point of having that character there?
No, it serves absolutely no purpose. Needed to be cut out of this movie completely.
Yeah.
Bad choice to have her in this fucking script.
Yeah.
But back to the charity event. Jonathan, I'm going to toss to you here. Are you a fan of a sexy gorilla dance?
Oh my god.
Dude, this was probably one of the most cringe, or the top 3 cringe scenes in the entire movie.
In the history of cinema.
I wish you guys could see Steve's face right now.
Right?
He is physically irritated over this. His arms are crossed and he's shaking. He is physically shaking because he's so mad about this scene.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I just wanted to paint the picture for our listeners, but I mean, that's really how bad this scene is. And I can't imagine that none of the writers or the directors or producers thought, wow, this is a big steaming pile of dog shit. We should probably not do this and let's do something.
Let's do this a different way, maybe.
Who thought this scene up in the first place? Yet, how'd they get it filmed without realizing? How'd they get through post without cutting it? How did they find a fucking gorilla costume for Bane to put on? Why would mindless Bane learn a choreographed dance, and who taught it to him? Are you telling me Poison Ivy spent hours teaching him how to do this dance in a gorilla costume? Is that what I'm supposed to take away from this? Unbelievable.
So the dance itself is a throwback to a movie from 1932 called Hot Voodoo, where a similar presentation occurs, where there's some tribal dressed people on a stage dancing, and then a big gorilla suit comes out, takes off the glove, you see a feminine hand, takes off the other glove, and eventually reveals her face as an attractive woman. So it's a throwback to this old obscure movie that no one really has seen, that's at least watching Batman and Robin in 1997. And just it being a reference to something, I don't think is a good enough reason to keep it.
No, especially when it's a pointless reference to something weird that doesn't fit into this film and is a reference to another movie that most people wouldn't know. And like, yeah, just what are you doing?
Yeah, and one of the other things about this scene too is that this is supposed to be like a save the rainforest thing, right? But there's such a big amount of culture appropriation happening in here that doesn't hold up today, where you have these like George of the Jungle looking motherfuckers in here, like all roided out, but they're all wearing like very, I don't want to say traditional African getups, but they're like of somebody somewhere, they're like ritual dance costumes that these guys are wearing and just have these premeditated dance routines that they're doing in here, and it's just so obscene, and it would not ever hold up today to do that.
It doesn't hold up then.
No, it didn't hold up then, and
terrible
it definitely
then.
wouldn't be today.
Not only are you completely right, you just made me think of something that never occurred to me until literally this second. The rest of those dancers would have been people that had been hired for the event. How did they squeeze Bane in his gorilla costume into that without anyone noticing?
The whole thing is fucking bad.
Yeah.
And like the guys laying down to allow Poison Ivy to walk over them. I mean,
these
it's
huge,
it's all
jacked,
unreal.
Scantily clad men, ever present in Schumacher's Batman movies. You know, you got the circus in the last one. You got these guys in this one. Like you said, these Tarzan motherfuckers.
Imagine George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser on steroids. That's what every one of these guys looked like.
I mean, I know you have your opinions about the aesthetic of the vampires in Lost Boys, but at least I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that style was popular among new wave people in the late 80s anyway, and you could make it work, but this was really him just indulging.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. And I don't mind the style in the Lost Boys at all. I really like the Lost Boys. I just maintain that it's homoerotic.
Look, Star is really beautiful.
Yeah, she's good looking.
She is good looking. Jamie Gertz was very pretty.
She was in The Boyfriend School. You ever see that movie?
I think I know the name, but I've never seen it.
Gutenberg? Oh, it's classic 80s, bro.
With Gutenberg. Oh, you know what? I think I have seen bits of that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we learn here that Poison Ivy, we talked about it already, but we learn about her pheromone dust, which like she has like this horny goatweed dust that she blows into the faces of men and they become obsessed with her instantaneously.
So
she
weird.
Seduces the dynamic duo who appeared for this charity event. You know, they now make special guest appearances to...
Yeah, that's a weird touch. I mean, and also Bruce needs to keep his identity secret, and his special guest is himself as Batman.
Now presenting Batman. He leaves the stage.
Yeah, that's the
20
thing.
minutes later, Batman comes on stage.
How does he explain that he orchestrated this whole thing and got Batman to show up and doesn't stick around for Batman's actual appearance? Like, and how does he explain what Dick does normally when they're not in costume? Like, I've just got this 20-year-old with me.
He's the motorcycle mechanic.
Right?
He's my quote-unquote friend.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like someone who's not out of the closet. They have like their friend.
My man friend.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's my buddy. Buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Dude.
The whistle.
So, Poison Ivy, she's seducing everyone, right? Now, this is like a bidding...
Hold on, bud. She's not seducing everyone, okay? This is a huge inequality that her pheromone dust does not also work on women.
You're right. It doesn't.
It only works on men.
It works on straight men, because all the men in this movie are straight, goddammit.
Yeah, that's true. Also, if you want to expose an entire room to that stuff, why would you just be blowing it out of a little tin? Why not come up with some kind of explosive that just fills the room with it?
Send it through the air ducts.
Yeah, exactly. Or drain it through the city's pipes like Scarecrow.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like she excretes it naturally, but they want to give some kind of visual aid in this movie. Yeah. So it shows her blow it, and you can actually see the physical CG dust appear around them.
I guess I could dig that.
But, like, I don't know. To me, it seems like she's excreting it naturally.
Well, she's part plant now, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense.
It's another comic book trope is that somehow an adult can modify their DNA without it just killing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic comic right there. But everyone's bidding on these models, right? So like
that is misogynistic. You're right.
That's the part I was talking about. They're bidding on them, and you know it's kind of unclear what they get but you get the idea, right? If you're gonna pay $500,000 for a woman, I think you're gonna fuck them.
And oh god, yeah. And there's the one douchebag who bids the $500,000 is the guy who just keeps outbidding he's the one guy in the room who got to outbid all the other guys.
And he's trying to like out-ham everyone else too. And I bid $500,000. Like,
and then he like a little Barnum in there, yeah.
And then he like comically laughs about it afterwards. The other thing is about this scene, did you notice that all the women's names were flowers? It was like Magnolia and a few other ones.
Because they're wearing flowers.
Yeah, I always thought they were just referring to them that way because that's the flower they were wearing. Is that supposed to be their actual names?
Oh, I don't know.
No. Yeah. That they're calling them based on that, I think. Not that it matters too much.
So that's their hooker name.
That's their, yeah.
their donation of time name.
Right.
Some lucky boy's about to hit the honeypot. I'll include an evening of my company for the winner. I'll bring everything you see here, plus everything you don't.
I bid $50,000 for poison ivy.
$100,000. And I'm in you $500,000.
$1 million.
$2 million.
You don't have it. $3 million.
I'll borrow it from you. $4 million.
$5 million.
That's a utility belt, not a money belt. $6 million.
$7 million.
But Ivy shows up, and, you know, now people are really bidding big numbers, including Batman and Robin.
Robin decides to bid some of Bruce's money.
So this doesn't make sense to me, and I think it's dumb because they're bidding meaningless numbers.
Yeah.
They can just keep saying 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and it means nothing because Chris O'Donnell's never going to be able to pay it.
No, he's like, I'll borrow the money from you. It's like, well, no, you won't, because I'm not going to give it to you.
So Batman doesn't have to outbid him because he can never pay it. So they just keep saying bigger numbers.
Right? And how would he pay him back? I mean, I understand he's supposed to be under the influence of drugs, but does Dick really think he can pay Bruce back for $1 million loan? Where are you going to get that?
And he's just going to say a higher number than whatever you say plus one?
And then you'll give me the money that I outbid you, which I'll never actually be able to repay, for a thing that you wanted for yourself. Okay.
So stupid.
Right?
And then they do the stupid little cliche credit card, you know, Visa, Master, the Bat card, never leave the Bat Cave without it.
Credit card companies, which typically require a social security number, just gave a Batman credit card out.
With no expiration date.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good through forever because that's the name of the last movie.
This movie is so fucking stupid.
So that's a key moment that, like, everyone who's talked about this movie has made fun of, the Bat credit card. It is bad, but I think there's a lot worse things in this area.
It's not even the worst part of the movie.
You know, maybe Robin has like a co-card with him, and so that's how he could charge the $6 million.
Giving that brat a credit card is a bad idea.
Yeah.
A brat.
I love it.
Brat man. So Mr. Freeze, of course, shows up to this charity event in his fucking tank, and he says the word chill over and over and over.
All right, everyone. Chill. Chill. Chill.
Chill.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Now, of course, Ivy tries to seduce him too, like she can with all men, but he is immune to her Spanish fly techniques. Now, we talked a little bit about Mr. Freeze and his sexuality. I assume that his dick froze and broke off, snapped off like the T-1000's leg, you know, like... So he just doesn't have it anymore, which is why that doesn't work.
Why are you thinking about his frozen dick anyway?
I mean, I'll admit it. I was also, relative to his relationship with the other character.
Who's the Schumacher now?
Right? I'll own it. Whatever. Fine.
That blue fucking rod, that muscly rod, it's all buff like the rest of him.
He's 12 degrees. Why would you want to do that? I don't get it.
If we're going to go down that route, the amount of steroids that Arnold did, there's probably not much left there anyway.
That's probably true also. Got like a baby corn that never gets firm.
Yeah.
A baby corn and a couple of garbanzo beans. That's it.
One thing about this scene when like Freeze shows up and he's like causing chaos, like, you know, there's a fight scene, there's another action scene, which all the action scenes are pretty bad in this movie. It's a lot of really clunky kicks and punches that are just dumb, not choreographed really well, like in the modern Batman. But, you know, Freeze freezes some people and then dips. And Batman goes after him and he tells the commissioner, he says, "Commissioner, you have 11 minutes to thaw these people."
So wait, Freeze froze people and then took a giant scoop of chewing tobacco?
Oh, yeah, he dips. I get it now.
Yeah, right? There you go. No, I know what you mean.
But Batman just says that to Gordon and then leaves, so it's pretty funny, right? Like, he'll spend the time to thaw Dick Grayson, but when all the other innocent bystanders are frozen, he just chases down Freeze.
And the way Dick's been acting, I would have just let his ass stay fucking frozen. I mean, on top of that, 11 minutes seems really long. Once you go hypothermic, which is quick, it starts causing organ damage really quickly. Like, anyway.
Just to add one other thing, the only reason that Mr. Freeze really showed up to this event was because he needs to get diamonds. I don't think we've spoken to this. So he needs to get diamonds to get his freezing cock pump gun to work.
Yeah.
And his master plan of this huge freezing laser to freeze the whole world.
He needs a huge chunk of kyber crystal for the gun in the Death Star. Oh, wait.
Right, yeah.
So anyways, so there was a very specific diamond necklace that was at this event that he needed to steal.
To lure him there, yeah, they presented this. So that was kind of their plan, was to lure him out of hiding. But you're right, he needs diamonds to fuel his freezing technology, which is unique to this movie at the time. Maybe it was used later afterwards, but that was pretty unique to this. So that's why he's stealing so many diamonds. And then his plan, like you said, freeze Gotham and then hold the city for ransom.
Absolutely, boss. One more giant diamond of this size, and my freezing engine will be complete. I will freeze the city. Then I will hold Gotham ransom. Unless the city bows to my demands, it's winter forever here in Gotham. The city fathers will have no choice but to give me the billions I need to complete my research. So I can find a cure.
So I guess he's going to hold the city for ransom against the federal government, Steve.
Right, and it's like that. It doesn't make. I mean, look, even Dark Knight Rises, their way of handling Bane's takeover of Gotham is pretty borderline. But at least then they've got what is essentially an atomic bomb doing its rounds around the city, and Bane's big threat is, I'm going to set it off if you get anywhere near here.
Right.
Whereas in this, it's just, everything's going to be frozen.
Right.
Like, no, I don't think it's going to work.
Right, because after 11 minutes, everyone's dead.
Right. It also kind of begs the question why Superman wouldn't have shown up in Dark Knight Rises and just flown away with the bomb.
Well, at least in that movie, Superman doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's true. They don't acknowledge his existence in that version of Batman. So, yeah.
So that, at least, they have that.
Right.
But this leads to, like, a vehicle chase scene. So it's the Mr. Freeze's tank,
Here we go, Jonathan.
Mr. Freeze's tank, leading the charge. Batman and Robin are chasing after him in the Batmobile and in Robin's motorcycle. Steve, how does that go?
Well, they've got these, like, snowmobile retrofits on the vehicles. This Batmobile's got these fucking skis on it.
Isn't that later?
Oh, no, is that the later one?
Yeah, that's later.
You know what? You're right. That's the next one.
We'll complain about that in a few minutes.
Yeah. Which one was it? I'm not even sure I remember how this one went.
So I'll talk about it then. They drive down the arm of a statue.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I do. The kid in me likes the 3 seconds where the vehicles are going down the statue. It's stupid, but I kind of like the way it looked. If I like it at 11 or what was it, 97? Wow, I was really...
That's super like Batman the Animated Series type
right?
shit.
You know, the kid in me was like, oh, that moment's kind of neat. Right before, I'm like, but it's also ridiculous.
The aesthetic of Gotham in this movie and the previous one is different from the Burton one, obviously.
Well, and oh no, I'm forgetting the poor man's name. The guy who was the production designer for the first one, who was very talented, sadly committed suicide not long after the film came out. But yeah, I mean, I actually like some of the exterior design for this. The woman who did it's name's Barbara Ling. She decided to combine a bunch of different influences. The way parts of Gotham look are the only things about this movie I actually sort of like. But
here's something I like. This is actually my favorite part of the movie. My single favorite part is only a few seconds long, and it happens to be during this chase scene. So first I'll talk about the scene leading up. So they're going to do this big jump off of the fingertips of this statue, basically from a statue that they're driving on to a nearby skyscraper. Big vehicle jump, like Fast and Furious 7 style, right? Mr. Freeze's car goes first, his henchmen go after. The Batmobile is going to make the jump alongside Robin, but Batman, over the comm system, tells Robin, you can't make this jump, you got to pull back. And Robin's like, no, I can fucking do it. I'll be fine. So Batman remotely disables Robin's vehicle because he doesn't believe that he can do it. In his mind, he's protecting Robin from crashing and burning when they make this jump. when the motorcycle stops and Robin gets out and he watches the Batmobile make the jump, there's a scene that I love. This is the one part of this movie that I really like, and that's just Robin's reaction. It just kind of zooms in on him, and he just like angrily yells.
Right.
It's like visceral. He is fucking pissed.
Right.
Pull back. You can't make the jump.
I can make it!
Pull back.
I can make it!
Redbird control codes. Disable engine.
No! Don't do it to me! We're not gonna make it!
And a little bit later on, they have a confrontation about this. Batman and Robin, they argue about this moment. That part, I think, is mostly unnecessary because you get everything you need from that yell. It tells you a lot. It tells you Robin's state of mind, the distrust, where it led to, and you know why he's going to start acting out, although he is a little bit bratty, like you said.
Yeah.
But they don't need a lot of the dialogue exchange. They need more reactions like this. Show us what the problem is.
Right.
Instead of having them bicker about it.
Yeah, you clearly get the idea that Batman is an over-controlling boyfriend in this scene.
Exactly.
For sure.
But and like I always found myself on Bruce's side anyway, because at the end of the day, like he's the one providing all the equipment, and the only reason Dick is really there is because of him. And in a way, he's like, you want Dick to be able to be a grown-up by himself, but Bruce sort of is responsible for him, and it's clear he's not going to make good decisions for himself. And we're not talking about, like, your high school kid might make a bad decision and end up in the principal's office. Like, he might make a bad decision and get killed. And which is exactly what happens to Jason in Death in the Family. I brought it up earlier, but, like, I don't know. On the one hand, I can empathize with Dick to the perspective, like, I'm an adult, and I've been doing this with you for a while. You've got to trust me a bit more, but I think from Bruce's end, it's like, well, the way you're acting, if I let you do that, you're going to be dead in the next 6 minutes. Like,
yeah, and, it makes more sense in the comic when he is a kid.
Yeah.
Because he's a child.
Yeah, he starts off being a teenager. You're right.
But in this, he's 30.
Yeah, he's way older, and at this point, you should know better. He should be where Nightwing was, basically. At the point where he's confident enough and capable enough, he can go do it on his own. And like, yeah.
So anyway, there's a moment I like surrounded by many moments I don't like. For example, the building jump. Yeah. Batman makes the jump and then takes out Mr. Freeze in a very anticlimactic way, right? Yeah. He just goes through the glass, and then you see that he has subdued Freeze. It's like, wait, he won? He got him?
Does Freeze shoot an ice bridge as they're making the jump?
I don't think so.
Okay, for some reason...
But he does shoot ice at the Batmobile, which freezes it, destroys it.
Yeah. So though I guess Alfred had a good reason to tell him not to get it destroyed this time. But yeah, for some reason I remembered him shooting an ice bridge that he used, and I started thinking about Iceman. Like Bobby would do that. I like that. Anyway.
I like that too, yeah. So the way Freeze is taken out is just bad. It just shows Batman over his body like, oh, I guess they had a fight.
Yeah, it's terrible. There's nothing really there. Yeah. I think this is one of those moments where they couldn't figure out how to do it, so they're just like, we'll write it so it's already happened.
Right. Awful. We talked about Mr. Freeze being in Arkham earlier because one of his COs is
Jesse Ventura,
the sexual Tyrannosaurus.
Oh my God, I will always love Ventura just for that line in Predator. Oh God, that's a great moment. I mean, the two of them together in that was fantastic. It worked perfectly. But yeah, Ventura has shown up. I mean, he showed up in The Running Man also. He's in 5 or 6 of Arnold's movies. Yeah. Like, it's very interesting. And they both ended up being governors, which is weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Another thing that's weird is Ivy and Bane. They're off doing their own thing here.
Right. Well, can we, just for a second, can we talk about Freeze's cell in Arkham? Because this is stupid. It's really fucking stupid. They've got this beam of cold light inside the cell. No explanation how that works. You've got this 6 feet, 8 foot wide beam. Then within the beam, it's sub-zero. You step 6 inches outside the beam, it's normal room temperature.
It's Scorpion.
Yeah. And and he's got to stay inside the beam. this is... look, for all my criticisms of Singer's first X-Men movie, the one clever thing they did was the plastic cell, so to speak, that Magneto ends up in, so he can't bend his way out of it.
That's a good idea.
You know, it's like they could have done something more creative. There's just a beam of light. How the fuck does that work?
It's an exact callback to the first appearance of Mr. Freeze in the Adam West Show.
That's true. And nothing in a good Batman movie should ever be taken from the Adam West Show.
Exactly. So, you know, I watched that episode when we did the Mr. Freeze podcast on spoilers. It's an awful piece of shit.
Yeah.
But he has a room like that. And that's kind of how they defeat him. They get him in the non-cold area.
Why did they even put him in a room that size? He could have been in a 6-foot wide cube at that point. There's only one tiny area he can survive in. Yeah.
Yep. So that's where Freeze is. But meanwhile, Ivy and Bane, they need a hideout location of their own, right? Freeze has got the popsicle stand, whatever the fuck that place is.
This is my favorite part of the movie.
This is your favorite part?
The one scene where they find the gang guys with the neon faces, that actually is my favorite moment in the whole movie, just because I think the one English dude playing the gang leader gives the best performance of the whole movie.
Why do you say that?
I don't, but there's something about the way he delivers that line that's just so spot on for me. And like the attitude of it, he's the only one who seemed he was actually playing, whether even if the character's goofy, he was actually playing the character instead of just being a motion capture toy delivering a bunch of ridiculous puns and lines. Like, his lines aren't even that good. I just love the way he commits to it. You know, it does remind me of Lecter in that moment. It's like, this guy's creepy as fuck. I mean, that's the only part of that scene I really like, but I like him.
Hello, my little pretty.
Hello yourself.
You look good enough to eat.
That I am. Come and get me, if you can.
With pleasure.
This spot, it's like the drinking spot of the local ravers or something.
That's the other thing. Something about the 14-year-old of me kind of likes the neon spray painted room. It's stupid. I'm not even going to argue that, but like there's the young teen version of me likes it.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. The color contrast, the costumes, the lighting. It really reminded me of going to play laser tag as a kid. And
Q-Star, absolutely.
Yeah, I used to go to Laser Star all the time. And the black lights, the neon colors that really pop under the black lights, like that really brought back that nostalgia feel for me.
That's so funny that you guys like that.
And you're right, it's a bit ravey. I think it's just because it's such a mid to late 90s aesthetic in that moment. And I'm like, yes, because I wish it was still 1997. But
it's somewhat of a carryover from Batman Forever, where the street toughs dress like ravers and have neon makeup.
Was that scene? It was in Forever where O'Donnell's on the motorcycle and he finds a similar gang listening to Offspring in downtown somewhere and gets into a fight with them.
They got the face paint, they got the glow sticks. In this one, they have not necessarily the glow sticks, they have like plastic chains that are molded to look like little bones.
Well, they get real weird with the gangs in this one. There's a moment later where you see a bunch of the different gangs all grouped up, and one group of them is dressed like the Droogs from Clockwork Orange, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Weirdos.
Right?
But it's just everything's glow in the dark. They got face paint. They're meant to be like a gang, but clearly they're just a group of raver kids that they just beat the shit out of. Like,
these are just aggressive raver kids on too much E.
Yeah.
Like...
You know, there's something that just doesn't make sense to me, and I never really understood it, and that's why does Bane even obey Ivy?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. She's not the one that created him. She wasn't there for his birth. He's like, there's nothing to tie the two of them together.
He has no brain power in this version of Bane, and I think she is like his mother figure, the first person that he found after his new, born again self.
And no, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also thinking, was it supposed to be, maybe it was supposed to be the pheromone? I mean, you could be right.
Maybe that's also true.
Yeah.
It's never really explained, but I feel like he's just like a killing machine monster. So like, why doesn't he kill Freeze when he sees him? Why doesn't he kill Ivy?
But the pheromone's kind of out of the question because he doesn't get horny with her.
It's true. You're right. He never gets like lovey-dovey horny with her and...
Yeah, because that monster with little brain power like that, I think we all know what he would do.
Real quick.
Yeah, if unleashed from his cage.
Like,
Yeah, he would totally get like Texas Chainsaw on her or something.
Yeah, it would not be pretty.
I mean, that was one of the best parts about the way Bane was portrayed in Rises. Is like he got huge for that part. Now I'm blanking on his name.
Tom Hardy.
Thank you, Hardy. Hardy got big for that role, but he didn't get like. They didn't like if I'd been casting that part. I know we've had this discussion before. I would have been real tempted to go with like a Vader move because he's got the mask on. You cast some gigantic bodybuilder to be the physical part of the part, and then you get a better actor to do the voice. But as big as he got, he didn't get quite that huge. What he did do was play Bane as being very cunning and tactical and very physically frightening when you're one-on-one with him, and that sold it. It made it work.
That's really my favorite part about The Dark Knight Rises is that Batman, who has been undefeatable in a hand-to-hand situation up to that point, meets his match.
Yeah.
Now we meet someone who is at least as good as you, but in one case, better than you.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the things I love about that movie.
Right. Yeah, me too.
But in this movie, Steve, there's a scene that comes up that I don't know why it wasn't cut out. And that's a scene where Bruce Wayne has dinner with his girlfriend.
That's another pointless scene, and she wants to get married, and he's not into it. Well, but I mean, obviously, because he's Batman, he can't tell her he's Batman. But like, he's had this same conversation with Vicky and with Selena, and it was better in both of the other cases.
And they were relevant to the movie.
They were. This is a pointless, needless scene. I think running time, maybe. I don't know. It was, although the movie's 2 hours long, so they could have cut the 3 minutes out. It wouldn't have mattered.
It would not have mattered at all.
No.
It's not very common that I pick out a scene from a movie and I say, cut that particular scene completely.
And going back to our commentary from a few minutes ago, like that relationship is pointless. Her character adds nothing to the movie. She's not an interesting person. She's not an interesting character. She's not relevant to Bruce's life in any way other than being the attractive woman who he's sleeping with right now. So it's like, yeah.
She's the cover up for the Batman and Robin inappropriateness.
She's the beard.
she is the one. She's his cover story.
Yeah.
Oh
She's
my
the
God.
the glasses with the nose and mustache.
Fucking A, absolutely.
All right, we talked about this a little bit. I want to go in depth. Dick Grayson catches Barbara leaving Wayne Manor, follows her. Now, what she does at night, apparently, she goes to a spot where the gangs from the Warriors and the Clockwork Orange all congregate together for illegal street racing.
Yeah, you've got the Warriors, you've got the Droogs, you've got a bunch of guys who dress like dandies from the 1700s with powdered wigs and stuff.
What? I think I said racing, by the way. I meant racing. So go on.
And
Coolio, you get to pass on that.
And Coolio is the bookie.
Yeah, so Coolio's the banker, the bookie, and so I'm gonna touch on the other ones when we get to the end. But according to the rumor mill, they were planning on like 7 different spin-offs from this film if it had done better, and one of them was supposed to be an additional Batman movie where Coolio played Jonathan Crane. He was supposed to be the next Scarecrow. Coolio swears to God that he spoke to the studio about this. They had pre-production scripts being worked and plans for the movie, and then when this bombed critically and failed to make the kind of money they thought, that they, according to the story, the studio, Warner Brothers, immediately dropped every single one of the other projects, and a Scarecrow movie with him was apparently, or reportedly, one of them, which is really weird.
This movie did make double its budget, but I don't think it was quite enough to carry him over.
No, and I was going to say this one for the end, but it's a relevant little tidbit. The movie, let me get the stat up so I've got it right. The movie did really well in its opening week, but
teetered out.
It really did teeter out. It was, God, what was it? Let me grab it. It was a huge, yeah. Batman and Robin declined by 63% in its second week. Second week, the revenue dropped off by 63%. So it went from, it did make money, but it was like a big, it was essentially one big orgasm all at once in the first week, and the rest of it was just like the pitter patter later on. You know,
sounds like no orgasm. Very anticlimactic.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and interestingly, I guess I should have mentioned some of this in the pre-production talk, but it was out at least partly. I don't know what the exact release dates were, but it overlapped in theaters with Hercules, The First Men in Black, and Face Off. So there was some stiff box office competition at the moment, but still.
Dude, Men in Black was a banger.
It was. That was absolutely the best one of that group.
But yeah, Coolio's present at this race because it's 1997. There's some little fucking mongoloid kid there too yelling. Did you guys notice this little fucking kid?
Yeah. It's weird. It's like, I've already forgotten what Brando's Miro called that little creature they had with him, but it was basically that for this movie.
Yeah.
It's like they borrowed somebody from Willow.
Let's not disparage Willow.
Dude, I disparage that movie any chance I get.
No, fuck off.
Fuck
Willow's
yeah,
amazing.
Jonathan, god damn it.
I can't wait to watch the new one just to shit on it.
I've heard mixed things about the show.
I heard it's good.
I don't know. I'm going to watch it.
Started yet.
Me neither.
The race isn't very good. There's a lot of Dutch angles. There's lots of sparks.
Dude, I was just going to say that. I don't understand why there are sparks everywhere. It's like the motorcycle has splashed over a puddle or splashed through a puddle. Sparks. Somebody hit a plastic trash can. Sparks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we just went over a two-stair staircase. Sparks. Like,
it's because they're trying to make something that is visually uninteresting more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the woman, Barbara Ling, did a lot of the production design. She did some nice design stuff, but it seems like for the most part, Schumacher with both his Batman movies was just like throw in as much sparks and neon light as you can. And you know what? If you can get some in there, get some neon makeup in there too. Very weird.
That whole scene, the whole race scene is just so dark, so dimly lit. It's like, what, a minute and a half of just motorcycles going down back alley raceway with sparks every probably 3 seconds.
And the one guy can sabotage the races whenever he feels like. The other racers, nobody can do anything about it. The whole thing's weird.
It's not very good, but I guess we do learn a few things. That Barbara is a little bit of a badass. You know, she rides motorcycles. She's studied judo. She's
supposed to be, but she's just as big a brat as Dick is.
She's
sick
basically
of
a Dick Grayson clone.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to do what I want. Here's what I want to do. I get myself kicked out of school, and if you don't like it, fuck you. And it's like, if I were Bruce, I'm like, you know what?
My parents are dead.
Right? If I were Bruce, I'd be like, the both of you can fucking leave. Get out. Get out now. I don't need either of you around.
You know, if that race scene was replaced with just the music in the race scene was replaced with like a really uptone techno song, like that really gave you a good vibe of like the theme of the Batman and the Riddler's rides at Six Flags, of how they looked, right? Like you have the random barrels and the abandoned warehouse kind of themed look and things like that. Wet puddles and debris around. Yeah. Like a old car flipped upside down, right? Like that really gave those nostalgic roller coasters for me. It really gave that vibe seeing the scene, but the music just needed to be a little different.
Make them more like the goddamn rides.
Yeah. Go back and rework this movie.
It's reverse Pirates of the Caribbean.
Could have made it more like the Superman ride. It just goes straight up, lasts 12 seconds, and then it's over.
Yeah, they did that with Wonder Woman. So dumb.
Ivy visits Freeze over there in Arkham to break him out. The only thing that I think is noteworthy about this, well, two things. One, we see the costumes from Batman Forever. We see the Riddler costume and the Two-Face costume in the property locker.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a kid, that excited me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I admittedly also liked the nods to the other. It's one thing, there's one thing we've never gotten in a Batman movie. In some versions of Batman, especially during the late 80s and early 90s, the version of the Batcave they gave him was incredible. And he had this amazing collection of things he'd gotten. He had the huge coin he got from Two-Face. He had the dinosaur.
Yeah, the dinosaur.
Right?
In there.
There was all kinds of cool stuff in the Batcave. We've never gotten that in a movie.
He would practice grinding down the back of the dinosaur and eventually use that skill later on when he faces Freeze.
No, it was better than that. You know it.
Yeah. But the other thing that's noteworthy to me is that when Ivy helps Freeze escape, they just make this, what is it, a 200-foot drop, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be at least 200 feet. I mean, just the amount of falls in this movie is just kind of obscene. And the fact that what is this, like the Dubai Tower or something? Like every tower in Gotham is like they somehow figure out how to fall off of the very highest point of every tower or high location that they've been in. It's unreal.
You're supposed to believe because they're falling into water, they'd survive. But above, 50 feet or so, water is basically cement. You may as well be diving into the ground.
Yeah.
Unless you're really
Yeah.
make a dive position, like you're just going to destroy your insides.
Exactly.
And your bones.
Oh, yeah, you'll either break everything on the bottom and not be able to swim out, or you'll go in head first and snap your neck.
And Freeze is going to sink.
Oh, God, yeah, that was the other thing I thought is how the fuck is he supposed to make this jump and then swim wearing that huge suit?
Yeah, that suit's got to weigh 1,000 pounds or something.
And he's already told them it's almost out of energy, so it's not going to be much help.
Yeah.
In fact, given how cold that water is, you'd think he wouldn't need the suit to make the dive. The water's got to be 30 degrees. It's the middle of the winter there. How is Ivy supposed to not get hypothermia?
She's a plant.
Right?
You know what? There was that nice moment where Mr. Freeze was able to take a piece of ice and sculpt his wife into it and make a little, I don't know what they call those things. It's not real. It's kind
of like a snow globe, but it's a music box.
Yes. I was going to say like a jewelry box. You know how you flip the lid open and the little ballerina kind of spins around? It was kind of like that, but he made it out of an old watch or something. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a nice moment that he's still through all of this shit, he still loves his wife, and that's what his passion is, and that's where the direction that he wants to go.
That's directly from Heart of Ice. He does that exact moment in that, and that's kind of like how the episode ends, and it's very sad.
It is very sad.
And it's a good ending moment. It's like, what is this guy left with?
But it made me think, for one very weird specific reason, it actually made me think about Hellraiser. Because there's you don't really notice it in the movie unless you're paying attention, but Clive Barker did write it into the book. There's supposed to be a moment when you finish the puzzle just before the Cenobites show up where it plays a tune, and it's supposed to be this kind of weirdly eerie, calm melody that plays just before the gate opens and the Cenobites come through. And I was kind of hoping we'd get something like that, like the Cenobites. Pinhead just comes through and like tears Freeze apart. That'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Right.
Time for a real villain, Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. See what you do with these guys.
Bane, occasionally in this movie, we see him in this weird disguise, which is...
Oh my god, yeah, with the cap and the jacket.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's fucking Raphael from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It is. It's like he's walking around downtown. Yeah, trying to get into a movie.
What the hell was that? Looked like a big turtle in a trench coat. You're going to LaGuardia, right?
I like turtles.
Jonathan likes turtles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd believe you were the kid from that video, 100%. But
a little too old.
Yeah, very strange.
There is a really good short moment though with Alfred and Bruce, when Bruce kind of understands that Alfred is dying, and he asks him if he has any regrets.
Alfred, are you well?
As well as can be expected, sir.
My friend, I know you're sick. Now I can get you the best doctors.
I have seen the best doctors. A gentleman does not discuss his ailments. It is not civilized. I hope that I have taught you at least that much, Master Bruce.
Alfred, have you ever regretted your life working here?
Looking after heroes? No, sir. My only regret is that I was never able to be out there with you.
Not all heroes wear masks.
He was completely dedicated to the cause of Batman, and I like that.
There's a deleted alternate take of that scene where Alfred responds by saying, "My only regret is that you replaced Michael Keaton."
I would have much preferred that scene.
Right? Oh, he looks up at him from a daze and says, "Where's Tim Burton?"
At Freeze's lair, we get another showdown. Batman and Robin, they finally fight Bane. Now this has got to be a big moment in cinema.
So it's supposed to be a big moment in cinema, and it was very weird for me. If you don't have it in your head, not now, 3 days from now, whenever, watch just that one scene again, because I realized while I was looking at it, there's a lot of weird weird parallel between that and the fight between Bane and Bruce in Rises. There's a lot of, they're on a bridge, it's very narrow, Bruce goes for the kick, he gets thrown off. Like, it's weird how similar they are. I mean, it's way better in Rises, but it's strange how close they are.
It's almost like Nolan said, let's do this good.
Right? Like, that's what I thought. I'm like, it's almost like Nolan saw this and said, you know what, there's a part of this we can take. Like, it's very, very weird. Anyway.
But this sucks, just like all the hand-to-hand action in this movie. This movie is not known for its hand-to-hand action by any means.
No.
Not good choreography. Just dumb introduction of kind of plot devices inserted into the fight. Like Ivy shows up and she does the dust and they're all horny. And then they start bickering with each other. It basically ends with Robin saying he's going solo.
Yeah, Robin keeps insisting that Bruce is only upset because Ivy's not into him. And it's like, you're not even making sense at this point.
At this point in the movie, Freeze thinks that Nora, his wife, is dead, and he gets a little bit more unhinged. And his plan was to freeze Gotham and hold it for ransom. Now he's just like, I'm just gonna freeze the fucking world. Fuck it. That's kind of where he starts going.
That would have been a great story point if that character had been compelling or scary to begin with. You know, now that she's dead, it's like the only point of all of this was her. I'm just gonna go fucking ape on everybody. I'm gonna go straight up Joker status. I just want to watch this shit burn.
Yeah, I think that would have been great.
Right.
Freeze, not burn.
Exactly, it's true.
Some men just want to watch the world freeze.
Right.
Let's see. Alfred's dying wish.
To get Tim Burton back?
Is to get Tim Burton back. He says that to Barbara.
Right.
You must find my director.
Where's Vicky Vale? Fuck out of here.
No, but he wants He needs to be replaced because he knows he's gonna die.
But this leads to another huge faux pas, and it's 2 for Alfred. Fucking 2 for Alfred. He already let Vicky into the cave. Then he gives his niece this fucking puzzle for no goddamn reason to get her into the cave.
Well, he tells her that I need you to give this disc to my brother because he's basically the only one that can be my replacement. He doesn't say that directly, but
It's true.
you understand knowing what he's doing with Batman, how he's helping out.
He doesn't say anything to Bruce though. It's like I'm going to send my brother all this information about what you're doing without really being sure about how he's going to react. And then
what if his brother is not cool?
Right? And when we get there in a second, I want to talk about where Barbara's got the disc. This is a moment.
We can talk about it. He gives it to Barbara. He says, "Here's this. Never open it."
No. Okay, so she opens it. This fucking brat. Then she starts going through it. One interesting note, Apple built a really neat-looking computer in the early 90s to celebrate the company's 20th anniversary. It was called the 20th Anniversary Mac. The computer on Alfred's desk in this movie was a prototype version of it, pre-production, that Apple was testing with before they finalized the design. I think it's kind of neat. It's one of the first computers in the world to have an integrated LCD. But Barbara gets it first of all, her guesses for password are ridiculous. Her first password guess is Alfred. I mean, are you an idiot? Are you 6 years old? Is this the first time anyone's told you about passwords?
Okay. To be fair, this was 97.
Oh, because nobody had ever had needed a PIN code for their bank account or anything before that.
Yeah, come on. There was no, real cybersecurity.
But no one would use their own name.
Their first name, Jonathan?
I mean, come on. That's something a 9-year-old would do. It's like setting your locker combination to 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm gonna go be right back. I'm gonna go change all my passwords.
Right. But then in addition to that, when she finally does get it open, here's a hacker's moment, if there was ever a hacker's moment, because the first thing the disc does is just run 30 seconds of random Batman-related images flashing across the screen.
Getty images?
Yeah, here's the Bat symbol, here's the Batmobile, here's the Bat boat, here's the Bat cave, here's a bunch of drawings of things. Like, why? Why is that the way the disc opens?
I did not see her hit the extract all button on that disc to unzip everything.
And why wouldn't it just open as a page?
What if she cracked the disc, right? She finds out the password is PEG. Okay, it's dumb, but fine.
Right.
She gets in. There's a notepad file, double clicks it, Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yeah, right? Like, fuck, man. And it's like that scene when they're hacking the Gibson and it's just a bunch of algebra formulas for no reason. Like math. But it's even like, at least I find hackers endearing. There's nothing endearing about this. It's just stupid.
You know what was more endearing was Alfred actually using the internet to find his brother in 1997.
That's true.
That was far more endearing. But, the one thing that I did take away that we didn't touch on with that scene was that I really think Alfred did intend for her to have it, even though she said take it to his brother, because he said this is a secret that only family can be trusted with. And if you go and think about it, really, like his brother Wilfred was working in India, who's probably just as old or decrepit as Alfred was at the
Probably
time.
Probably has stage 2 McGregor syndrome.
Right? And he's like McGregor syndrome. And he's like the Maharaja's personal assistant or some stupid shit.
McGregor syndrome is genetic. But go on.
And Barbara's parents were dead. So who the fuck else was there to be family? It was only her.
No, I think you're right. I think Alfred wanted her to have it.
Yeah, he totally baited her into it.
But I mean, totally,
I want her to have it.
Well, me too. But totally inappropriate of him for the second. This is even worse than letting Vicky in. Now not only does she know where all the Batcave is, but she's aware of everything that's going on.
And now she has a copy of all the files.
Yeah,
she has all the engineering plans and the blueprints.
How the hell could he have predicted how she'd react to any of that? I mean, any normal human being would have seen it and gone, oh my God, these people are psychotic. I've got to tell the cops.
She was already a little street thug. She could have easily just been like, fuck this.
I'm gonna
and then
fence this.
sold that disc to anybody.
To Coolio?
God, to Coolio. Right. Probably the banker will buy it. I mean, how about anybody from Arkham? There's so many people in Gotham that would pay huge amounts of money to have that about Batman.
That would be a better story.
Yeah,
if that happened in this movie, and then like that's the way the direction went, like now they have to face off against some like Batman wannabes.
Right?
That'd be cool. There's a bit of bickering before what becomes first of a few big showdowns between Dick and Bruce. You know, Batman and Robin, they're fighting about Poison Ivy. Robin, like you said, she loves me, not you, and you can't handle it, man.
Can't handle it, man.
Where do you think you're going?
It's not a bat light, it's a Robin signal. Ivy's calling me.
Her name is Pamela Isley. I saw her talking to Gordon. She must have stolen his keys and changed the signal.
Yeah, she did it for me, for love.
She's infected us with some sort of pheromone extract.
There's a very good line that the writer had to have known would sound funny, and that's when Bruce says,
she wants to kill you, Dick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
there's a double meaning there, right?
Oh, 100%. It's definitely an entendre. And, I mean, God, the way they write Bruce, he's got a lot more control than I would, because that probably would have been the point where I just beat the living shit out of Dick and buried him somewhere in the Batcave. Like, you're going in a cement hole, you little bitch. All right.
You're going to be joining Jason.
Exactly.
Wow. All right, time for Freeze's master plan, guys. Freeze shows up to the Gotham Observatory. He's going to get this plan rolled out.
To use this ridiculous multi-satellite observatory system that Wayne Enterprises has constructed. We didn't even talk about how dumb that is. And that's fine. We don't need to. It's just, it's terrible.
His first order of business is to neutralize the only two people of color in this movie that have lines, aside from Coolio.
It's true.
Yeah.
We got the two scientists, right? He freezes them, and then we get to see more of them a little bit later when they get thawed. Kind of waste of space bystanders that are just like screaming and kind of, I guess they're there to like add tension to these scenes. Like they're yelling a lot as like the telescope is going up and down and things are crashing and burning. Bane is planting bombs and feels the need to say bomb.
And the bombs, by the way, look like ice shards.
So they designed them to look like Freeze's aesthetic.
Right? And I'm sitting there thinking, like, why do the bombs... What does this add to have the bombs look like this? Even from Freeze's perspective, the whole thing here is you need money for your research, but you've got cash for rocket ships and cars that can jump statues, and you're wasting money making what could have just been TNT sticks shaped like crystal ice. I don't what are your priorities in this situation?
Dude, he says bomb every time he sets one down.
Bomb. Just to make sure the audience knows what he's doing. You know what would have been easier than having him say that? Is just making them look like bombs.
Why not the old school, like 4 or 5 sticks of TNT just taped together with a clock on it, right?
Perfectly for Joker in the first one. The little sticks with the Joker face timer on them, that was enough.
Exactly.
That was great, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know what those bombs looked like was if Lego were to make an icicle piece that stuck on one little peg. That's what
it
they
fits
look
on
like.
one round peg.
Yes.
It's like a bit from a Mario game or one of the sub-Bowser villains. It's got crystal ice bombs.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, fuck.
Intruder alert. Identify.
Uncle Alfred, it's me, Barbara.
I expected you might find your way down here, child. As such, I programmed my brain algorithms into the Bat computer and created a virtual simulation.
I'd like to help Batman and Robin.
I anticipated you would and took the liberty to create something in your size.
Suit me up, Uncle Alfred.
Gentlemen, enter Batgirl.
Worst entry ever.
Batgirl suits up.
By the way, where the fuck did the suit come from?
Alfred made it.
How did Bruce not notice that?
How did Alfred know that she was going to gain 12 pounds?
Yeah, exactly. and how did he make it? And what's it made out of? And how did he size it correctly? Like, the whole thing is fucking...
And why are there heels?
Why did they have heels? Of all the things to put, it's even stupider than the ice skate boots. You made a superhero's costume. This woman's supposed to fight people. You gave her heels.
Hey, like Dr. Doolittle said, spandex. All spandex, baby.
That was the Nutty Professor.
That was
the same shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same movie with a different title.
Right?
You know, and the other thing they gave her was they added a mole on her lip, like a Madonna mole or something. Like,
disguise.
So dumb. She already has that fat one on her forehead. Why didn't they just put a black dot there?
The only costume stupider in the DC pantheon than Superman somehow not being recognizable as Clark Kent without any face covering at all is this. They've got her and Robin wearing a raccoon mask over their eyes.
Domino mask.
Domino, there you go. And you're supposed to not recognize who they are. Motherfucker, I can see your whole face. I don't know who you think you're hiding from, but it's not me.
I've seen women wear more eyeshadow than that.
Right? God damn. I've seen guys.
Especially in Oxnard.
I've seen guys in drag who are harder to identify than that.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, fuck me, is that dumb? And then.
Well, she's supposed to have a cowl.
Right?
But she doesn't.
And then she shows up, kicks a bunch of ass without any training at all. She's the only prep
I'm not even ready for that because
right,
I still want to talk about the costume intro because we talked about the Batman and Robin costume
Can we talk about her line when she gets there?
Bruce, it's me, Barbara. I found the Batcave.
What is it?
It's me, Barbara. Bruce, it's me, Barbara. Like, oh fuck, really? I couldn't tell. Like, oh my God. Are you the biggest idiot who's ever worn a costume? Thank you, Barbara. I can see you.
Yeah, let's just announce to the world.
Right, yeah, by the way, there's a bunch of other people here who can hear you. Like, and you called me Bruce. That's great.
We're all over the place.
Right?
But I just got to talk about the titties.
The
camera goes right to the titties when she suits up, right to the ass.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ass and chest shot I've been waiting for the whole movie.
Right, it's like the movie spent this time doing the boys. You got to give them credit. They do the same thing for the girl, right?
I mean, it's totally pointless and unnecessary, inexplicably strange. But fine, yeah, at least I got some butt and boob shots of Alicia Silverstone.
Me of all people, I didn't even see that scene. I'm super disappointed now, but I am not going to rewatch this.
Just imagine the same exact scene at the beginning with the guy suiting up, but with her.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, there's no guarantee that's her anyway. All you see is the costumed body. It could have been double.
Oh, yeah. It's a dude under there. Don't jerk it too hard.
Fuck. All right.
Hours wasted.
Right?
Dick was in the same costume. Yeah. They were role playing.
They did. I can't remember exactly which moment, but they one of the bat suits in this was actually a Kilmer bat suit that they retailored for Clooney. They started making some of the bat suits early before they knew the part was going to get recast, and they just used the sizing molds for Kilmer. And apparently, because of cost or production timing, they couldn't remake the costume, so they had to retailor one of Kilmer's, what was supposed to be a Kilmer costume for Clooney. Yeah.
So at this point, Robin meets up with Ivy because she put up a Robin signal in the sky.
That whole side bit with her convincing him that he's his own hero and needs a Robin symbol is also really fucking stupid. Very abrasive, annoying story point.
It's not very good.
No, it really isn't.
But, you know, she was going to lure him there to kill him, right, Jonathan? Like, her plan is to kiss him to death.
Yeah, exactly. And
death by snoo.
I'm supposed to be right. God, I was thinking about the other episode where the three of them were Leela and Fry get the superpowers from the cream and they wear the costumes and they fight the animal keeper in the museum. That scene belongs in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Same level of campiness. But
right before Robin goes to meet up with Poison Ivy, he and Batman kind of duke it out a little bit, where Batman's got to trust him more to make the right decisions. You know, Robin really wants to be solo. He doesn't want to be this like shadow of Batman anymore.
You would say anything to keep her away from me, wouldn't you? To keep her for yourself.
You once said to me that being part of a team means trusting your partner and sometimes counting on someone else is the only way to win. You remember that? You weren't talking about being partners, you were talking about being a family. So I'm asking you, friend, partner, brother, will you trust me now?
There's obviously dialogue that happens that we don't get to hear about, but Robin finally gets over to Poison Ivy. They meet up and, you know, he's still under this pheromone spell or whatever. And she tries to get him to kiss her. He says, "Tell me your plan first." Back and forth, yada, yada. She divulges the plan. He says, "Okay, fine, I'll kiss you." And then she's like, "Wait a minute. He didn't die." He goes, "Yeah, well, I got rubber lips on." And he pulls the latex off of his lips.
And that's how you resist Poison Ivy.
Little wax on your lips.
Now, so let's think about this.
He had lip condoms on.
Lip condoms.
And he didn't get lip AIDS.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, man.
Let's think about this, Steve. Does it make any fucking sense?
No, God, it makes no sense at all.
Rubber lips can be immune,
right,
to your charms.
Right?
Can they though?
But shouldn't he have had his like tongue covered?
Yeah,
with
that's what I was
the
thinking.
latex or something, because the saliva is what.
What if he stuck out his tongue and then he pulled off a condom that was literally over his tongue?
That would have been a great scene.
Well, imagine you're eating something, a candy bar, a powdered sugar donut, whatever. Some of it gets on your lips. It's pretty hard not for. It's almost impossible to be sure none of it ends up in your mouth, even if you're trying not to. Like, it's difficult to believe he wouldn't accidentally pick, or like Jonathan said, your tongue's not on it, she's not spreading it into your mouth. All you needed was like wax lips, and that was enough to stop this from happening.
Wax lips is a good candy.
Right? You know, it's also weird they wouldn't have given her some kind of like thorns so she could just prick people. Prick dick.
Prick the dick.
Right?
Prick the dick.
Prick the dick and he dies.
Fucking A. Oh my God.
Look, she incapacitates him through some contrived means. Batman is also there because Batman and Robin have kind of settled this difference that Poison Ivy has caused, right? So there's been a rift created. She's the cause of it. They've settled it. They decided, no, we're partners, we're brothers, we trust each other. So Batman is there too. But Batman gets incapacitated by the vines. You know, Poison Ivy can control plants to some degree. Less so in this movie than in other iterations, but fine. You know, generally she's much more of a force to be reckoned with, by the way, outside of this movie.
She could have just had the vines tie Dick up and then kissed him. She could have tied him up with the vines, pulled the plastic off his lips, and just given him a second kiss.
She could have just had the vines murder him.
Yeah, exactly. He was drowned in there anyway.
Asphyxiate him, like something.
And then he's fighting the vines in the water tank, and they've got to have... This is one of the worst moments of all. They've got this shot where he sticks his hand above the water to start the little bat saw, just to make sure that you see it happening. Like, I didn't need to see that. Just have him start using it.
The saw, man. That's one of the...
It's another gadget.
That was my gadget gripe from earlier. I mean, this is 2023, and just in the last year or two, we've come out with like little 12-volt lithium-powered saws to use on the job site that would replicate what the type of tool that they were using. So they did not have this shit in 97, Gotham or real world.
What do you call that vibrating thing doctors use to cut casts open?
It's like an oscillating tool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a name for it I can't remember, but those are kind of neat.
In the construction world, the one I have, they call it an oscillator or a multi-tool because you can have different types of blades, different fittings that go on there, and it just shakes back and forth really fast.
A bunch of my family were demolition contractors. I always loved seeing the stuff they pulled the buildings apart with.
Well, Batgirl shows up to save the day. It's a good thing she appears, Steve, because Batman and Robin are incapacitated by vines.
It's another thing. It's so convenient that Alfred gave her all this information and made a costume for her, and that she'd find the cave and suit up immediately and then go right to where they were to save them at exactly the right moment. I mean, come on, all movies are dependent on coincidence to some degree, but this is fucking crazy.
Right? How do you take out an evil seductress that incapacitates all men?
A woman who's immune to lesbianism, apparently.
Send in a straight woman.
Yeah.
I picture her like showing up and she pulls off her little mask over her eyes and go, "Hey, Bruce, it's me, Barbara." Puts the little mask back on and then starts fighting.
Who is this woman I've never seen in my life?
Bruce, it's me, Barbara.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
What a fucking dunce.
Did you catch how
world's greatest detective?
Did you catch how perfect her hair was after kicking Poison Ivy's ass? Like literally in a fight, a fist fight,
Great
kicking
hair.
kung fu fight, and her hair is not out of place whatsoever.
It's an amazing part about movies. Characters can get out of a pool or the ocean, and 18 seconds later, they're completely dry, wearing clean clothes.
It's like Jack Slater.
Yeah, you get movies that take place in Western times, and somehow everyone's not filthy.
That's one of my favorite things about one of the Marvel movies, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, I think it is, where Cap fights, I think his name's Bartok the Leaper, and it's on a ship. And the guy takes off his helmet, so Captain America takes off his helmet, and he has total fucked up hair from being under a helmet.
That is cool.
So I was like, that's a very nice touch.
Yeah.
They don't normally do that for Hollywood actors. They got to have really nice hair to go along with their handsome physique and features.
Yeah, different universes, but if they were going to have a pouty bitch sidekick, they could have made it Bucky. Anyway.
So Barbara, as Batgirl, kicks some serious ass. She kicks Ivy's ass into her chair, which inexplicably eats her.
Yeah, okay, that's another thing. Isn't she supposed to be in control of these flowers? Why does it eat her? Why does it eat her? It doesn't make any sense.
Why does it eat her, Jonathan?
Is that the plant from Little Shop of Horrors making a cameo?
That would have been hilarious. Have Seymour eat her? Oh my god! Oh no, Seymour was the guy. The plant, whatever the plant's name.
No,
was.
Rick Moranis eats her.
Yeah, right.
That's Seymour.
Oh my god, that's even better. Have Rick Moranis eat her.
Yeah, it was totally like a big Venus flytrap kind of plant, and she falls in there.
But she was sitting in there earlier just fine.
And she controls all of them. Why would it eat her?
She is Mother Nature.
It's like having a shark eat Aquaman. It makes no sense.
I mean, maybe the plant was just pissed because she fell in there,
And they did that at one point. That's how he lost his hand in the 90s. That was a really stupid side story. Anyway.
Over at the observatory, Mr. Freeze be freezing. I was wondering if you were going to spit out your water when I said that.
That was close.
Freeze be freezing, yo.
Oh my god.
Let's kick some ice. Yes.
Hey, if you stay freezing, you ain't got to start freezing. You know what I'm saying?
I've been freezing my whole life.
Guess that means mo freezing, mo problems.
We should watch a Damon Wayans movie. It's not any stupider than this.
Don't Be a Menace?
I would watch Don't Be a Menace. And what's the name of the one? Oh, no, wait. Meteor Man is, what was that actor's name?
Different dude. Yeah,
the other guy. But
that dude was pretty good.
Damon Wayans did one where he was a superhero too.
Yeah.
Slap Me and Call Me Sally.
Blank Man.
Blank Man. Yeah. That's what it was. Thank you.
Which is like Also a tribute to the Adam West Batman movies in a good way.
Yeah, that movie's funny.
Because it's how stupid he is for trying to be like a superhero like Batman.
Yes. Robert, I can't remember the actor's name for Meteor Man. That's going to drive me nuts. Anyway.
So, before the heroes engage with Mr. Freeze, so they got to move locations from the Turkish bath location where Ivy lives. They got to go to the observatory. But between that point, they change their costumes.
Yeah, and I think that's the part where they end up having him rewear one of Kilmer's costumes. And from what no, it wasn't that one.
This is the silver and navy costume.
And I know that I can't remember which scenes he wore it in, but one of the suits they gave to Robin with the red symbol on the front was supposed to be a nod to Darkwing or Nightwing. There you go. I always get the two backwards. It's supposed to be a nod to Nightwing, but. Yeah, I mean, none of them were very... It's another thing about the costumes in Schumacher's Batman movies look like they're made from the same shiny plastic that, like, cheap house products are made from. It's just this,
like what kind of product? What do you mean?
I can't even think of a good example. Like maybe cheap toys. It's this very hard, kind of brittle plastic that looks like it's got glitter in it. It's got a little sheen to it. It's like almost a PVC type stuff, but way too thin, like a light shell. I don't know. I can't think of anything that lines up with it. But like it doesn't look like an armored suit. It doesn't look like it's a utility. It doesn't look like it's something a superhero would wear. It looks like it's made of cheap, shiny, brittle plastic and was designed to look really good as like a Halloween costume until your kid inevitably trips in it and it scuffs. Like, I don't know.
And I just want to say, going back to like the marketing of this movie, these costumes that we see at the very end were on Taco Bell glass windows.
Yeah.
Big decals, life size.
With the hands on the hips.
The silver and navy, maybe it's black, but I always perceived it as navy. It's like silver and navy. And
it's a little bit like the RoboCop 2 armor, where it's got that bluey, silvery hue to it. Yeah.
But Batman's looks awful.
It does. It's terrible.
The other two are less bad. They're kind of jarring because they change so abruptly, but Batman's is really bad.
When like anybody, it wasn't Bruce, it was Jean-Paul Vallée, the guy he's normally Azrael in the DC comics. There was a period during the Nightfall series where Bruce's back was still broken. He couldn't do it, and he gave Jean-Paul permission to be Batman on his behalf.
Yeah.
And Jean-Paul starts modifying the Bat costume. And over a period of months, as the series drug out, it became more and more just kind of a suit of armor. And he's eventually wearing that when he kills Bane. That series, and sorry to ruin it for anybody who hasn't read it, but that series ends with, well, he kills Bane sort of, and then Bane comes back to the comics anyway. But
they always come back.
And but I mean, they made it look more like that. It's a very 90s thing, but stuff they made it look more like that would have been kind of cool.
So they show up in these new costumes. I think the best one in terms of the visual aesthetic is Dick Grayson. The Robin one doesn't look that bad. But the vehicles they are driving are fucking hideous. They're horrendous.
All of the
toys.
Schumacher vehicles look, I mean, it just goes back to letting toy designers design this whole film. They all look like toys. It's really stupid.
I really hate that. Jonathan, do you have anything to say about the vehicles they drive up in?
I don't want to talk about it.
Why do both front ends of Schumacher's Batmobiles light up like that? Why do they need so much lighting like built into the body of the car?
One of the things I hate.
Right?
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed about their vehicles was part of the lighting that they had was they literally took, like, imagine seeing movies of like a cop car who's not always a cop car, but they got to put that red light out through the window and put it up on top. Right. So they had those lights that spin around like that, and they had those in various places on the cars, and then just kind of had them mounted with a little bit of a cover. And so they just spun around and it was the cheapest possible way to make a lighting influence on the cars.
Yeah.
And it was just awful. It was like, well, I guess you guys can just go figure out whatever's in the parts pile over there and make some cars. We don't have any budget left. Figure it out.
No, it does seem kind of like that. They told the designers to come up with something crazy and just throw it together. Or
the toy manufacturer. Kenner came up with them, maybe?
Right, yeah. And I think, my memory's hazy of it, but I think there was a pretty large Kenner or somebody toy of the Batmobiles from both this and Forever. It was like 14, 16 inches long in a big box, and it was like $300 even back then.
You know, I don't mind the toys from this movie themselves,
Well,
separate
they
from the
look like
movie.
toys, yeah.
Right, because they're good toys. But the movie sucks. And that fucking snowmobile, whatever it is that Robin is driving, is a goddamn monstrosity.
It is a monstrosity.
That thing is horrible. It's disgusting. There's no wonder they don't have it on screen that often.
Right.
It's fucking hideous.
All the money for the vehicle design to have it on screen for 18 seconds.
I'm pretty sure he runs over Jeremy Renner in it. No, I'm just kidding. Wow.
Well, if
I
you're
like
gonna-
Jeremy Renner.
I mean, no
ran over
disrespect him
Ken
as a human
Block.
being, 'cause I don't have any problem with him as a human being, but if you're going to kill off a Marvel character, it may as well be that one.
No, come on.
He's almost as useless as Black Widow.
The views of Steve do not reflect the views of Big Dumb Movie Podcast.
No, yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely. Corey disagrees with me, but you got a team of people with actual superheroes and or superpowers, and a Hulk and a Thor and an Iron Man, and what you need is a guy who's good at shooting arrows. Fuck that. I'm sorry, it's almost as bad as Black Widow. Her power is being able to kick people.
She does it pretty good though.
I mean, yeah, she looks great in the suit. You know, but it's like, look, I've the same problem with a lot of this Black Cat in the Spider-Man comics. What the hell is she gonna do? Anyway.
Our final showdown, there's two groups that are fighting primarily. Batman versus Freeze, which is awful, and Batman's sidekicks versus Bane. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
Bane has a clear weakness, right, Jonathan? Like, it's really just a matter of waiting for them to pull the plug on him, and they waited to the end.
It's pulling the plug is just like that. That's exactly it. I mean, Bane in this form is the weakest piece of shit villain that I have seen on any of the Batman movies that I've watched.
Oh, yeah.
Like he seriously was just able to be beaten by yanking one of his hoses off.
That's it. They should have bataranged that shit a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my, and I like the Nolan Batmans a lot. I really do, especially the first two. But it's one of my complaints about those two is why did nobody, even at the beginning when he's on the plane, the CIA agent's like, what happens if I take the mask off? And Bane threatens him. He said, it'll be very painful for you. But like, yeah, how come nobody tries to pull it off? It's very weird. You know, it's clear it's going to be excruciating for him. He's not going to be able to kill anybody without it on. He's going to be too busy on the floor having a seizure. Yeah, real weird. And real weird, that's the only thing, the one kind of plug. The fight in the comics is way better. He loses a couple of the valves and he tries to fight through the pain. And yeah, it's much more interesting.
Yeah, in this version of the fight, it was just so anticlimactic. I mean, he fell down after getting his tube ripped out, and the steroid mixture just was not able to flow through his body. So within seconds, he deflated and went back to his original size, and it was disgusting. It was like a flattened skin suit. I mean, I don't know. Watching his lifeless body there was probably better than the whole fight itself.
The Batman and Freeze fight is just chaos. Like, I dare anyone to describe this scene off memory.
That's another one. How come Bruce doesn't just batarang the dome around his head or damage the tank that feeds the cold into his suit? Like, all you got to do is stop the cold, and he's immediately, like, they even showed it in the prison cell. He gets 6 feet from that beam. He collapses.
Yep.
Just take the cold away.
They got to use science, of course, you know. Barbara Gordon, when she was at, what is it, Oxbridge?
Oxbridge, yeah.
When she was at Oxbridge.
Majoring in motorcycle racing and judo.
No, she actually majored in computer science.
Oh,
Did you
that's
catch
right.
that? She's a hacker, like in Jurassic Park.
Lexi. Great character.
So she's got to use her computer skills to manage the satellite sunbeams.
Yeah, she figures that one out right away. Because it's sunlight in Congo right now.
8 more minutes in a city full of Gothamites or ice cubes forever.
Sunlight could reverse the freezing process.
We'll sunrise them for 5 hours.
Here,
But it's morning in the Congo.
if we could relay the sunlight.
From the other side of the equator.
It'll take the satellites about a minute to realign, but Damn.
Damn's not good.
Those targeting mirrors are frozen. The thawing beam won't work.
All right, I'll set the telescope. You thaw the mirrors.
What a weird. Why Congo?
A superior movie.
Yeah, even that's a better movie. I mean, that says a lot. God damn.
Jonathan, what were your thoughts about this like satellite, freezing Gotham, unfreezing Gotham, light beam bullshit?
Yeah, this was just, again, it was just, like you said, it was just chaos. It was very hard to follow. I felt like it was a very unthought out scene. Like they just said, all right, how are we going to make these guys fight? We've got to accomplish two things here. We need to start freezing Gotham, and then we need to unfreeze Gotham. But at the same time, we're going to go ahead and destroy the telescope that we need. And how do we counteract it once that happens? And it was just, it's
Very
just a
easily,
bunch of
apparently.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. If you're a super hacker,
it would take a computer genius. I'm on it. I'm on it.
How do you guarantee you can actually hit every frozen person with the beam? And how do you guarantee you can do it
All
without...
they needed to unfreeze is the dog, okay?
Right?
the dog needed to finish taking a piss.
Yeah.
You know?
And kind of weird nobody accidentally got burnt or blown up. You know,
There had to be casualties in the thawing process. There had to be.
There'd be newspapers the next day. Batman blows it. And Bruce would be like, Batman blows it? He must have saved millions of dollars in property damage alone.
Batman blows it with dick.
Batman and Dick. Batman blows it.
Batman and Dick go off with a girl.
There was a scene in the thawing process that just bothered me a lot. And it's so small. It's the tiniest thing. What it was there was a cop car that was frozen. So it was like, unfreeze the dog, unfreeze the guy buying the hot dog, and then unfreeze the cop car. The guy opens the door to the cop car to get out, and the icicles that were on the door were like some cheap piece of like thin plastic or something, and they were waving back and forth like a dog's tail when they opened the door of the car. And it was like, I mean, really, nobody caught that scene. Nobody could have made those fake icicles just a little more rigid.
Dude, it's like the tombstone in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
The penguin, when he bumps into it and it just like moves.
Yeah. Dude, it was so bad. And of all things to really be like picky about, that was something that was like so simple that it just really bothered me.
Good eye on that one, man. Small detail, but yes, all complaints are relevant in this podcast. There is something I kind of like, after Freeze is defeated, which this whole action scene at the end sucks so bad that there's really no point in going into the real details of like the combat, because it's just wire work, and you kick someone and they fly, then you punch someone and they fly, you backhand someone, whatever. But when Freeze is defeated, when he is subdued, when Batman asks him for help, I like that. Like, I really feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger's acting is good in this moment. Someone more famous than me once said that Arnold Schwarzenegger's best acting is nonverbal, and I totally agree with that, and I see that in all of his movies, especially the Terminator movies. But
yeah,
when he's introspective and he's realizing that his wife is not dead, obviously he says it, but it's really like his reaction and the sadness you see in his eyes, and then he does say, "Okay, I will help you, Batman."
She lives?
He gives Batman the cure for stage 1 of McGregor syndrome, so that Batman can later then use it on Alfred.
How convenient.
But I kind of like that, he gives him what he wants ultimately. He says, you're going to prison, but you can still continue your research. He doesn't see the harm in him trying to find a cure for a disease while in prison. Now, there's some other choices about what he does in prison that I don't think are quite on the up and up.
No.
Putting him in the same cell as a woman
is kind of weird.
It's probably a bad idea.
Surprise. I am your new cellmate. And I've come to make your life a living hell. Prepare for a bitter harvest. Winter has come at last.
That's how Freddy Krueger was born.
That's true. That in a furnace.
Yeah, well, I mean, Freddy Krueger's mom. She was put in a prison for the criminally insane with a bunch of maniacs.
It's true.
100 maniacs, as they call it. And 9 months later, Freddy Krueger was born.
You've been hanging out with Josh too much.
Yeah, well, I reviewed that exact movie kind of recently. So.
Oh, you can see the first one? That's awesome.
Elm Street 3.
Oh, you did 3? The 3's the Dream Child, isn't it?
Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors, excuse me. I think that one had little Danielle Harris in it, right? Is that the one with the niece?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay, I'm thinking of another one.
Anyway.
Oh, no, that was one of the Halloween movies. Never mind.
Steve, any final thoughts about Freeze's defeat?
About Freeze's defeat? Never been so happy since Batman Forever to see a villain finally get knocked off, even if it was in the worst possible way. But specific to that scene, no, that's about it.
Jonathan, the movie ends with a new partnership being formed. The team is no longer just Batman and Robin. Now they have a clunkier name to work with for this sequel that will never come out. Batman and Robin and Batgirl.
I'm going to touch on more about this in a minute, but the next one was going to be called Batman Unchained. They actually did kick that one around. It was the title they were working with preemptively at the point this got made.
Not a good one. I don't like that.
No, it's bad title.
Bruce probably is kicking himself in the ass because he never wanted to get married, right? And now he's got these 2 little shit-ass kids living with him
right?
that he's got to bail out at every fight, and he's got to coach them along and help them figure out how to be these superheroes. Dude, no wonder we didn't get any more Batman and Robin and Batgirl, dude. He
killed himself.
Buried them, dude.
Yeah, Bruce did them and then himself. That was it.
Exactly.
He battering
He was
himself.
like, I would rather kill myself than teach these 2 little fuckers how to be superheroes.
These 2 petulant, spoiled little criminals playing superhero. Yeah, I mean they're more dangerous than anyone else.
I mean, Batgirl in this movie, like I said earlier, she is a Robin clone.
Yeah,
she's just girl Robin.
Exactly, and totally useless.
Yeah, I mean, she kicked Ivy's botanical butt.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, they relegate her to just being an extra set of hands and feet to kick and punch someone with. That's what she's there for.
Girl fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they can have her hit the women so that Bruce doesn't have to. Again, something they addressed way better.
Woman.
Right? That was so much better.
How could you? I'm a woman.
I'm sorry,
How could you?
How could you? And he feels bad. I love that moment.
You're like, I'm sorry.
Right?
That's one of the fucking great moments of Batman Returns. Because he doesn't know what to do. He's like, oh shit, I did just
hit a woman.
She also sliced him up pretty good, though.
She did. She got the claws right in his
She deserves
ribs.
to be punched.
That was one of my moments with Returns. Is like, I don't understand why Bruce's ribs wouldn't have been better armored than that. But if that's my only real complaint about that scene, then fine.
I kind of like that, though. He needs some mobility, so he has some like weak spots, you know? Like,
it's true.
It can't all just be hard as fucking stone.
And it's something he comments on dialogue-wise later. He tells some comment to Alfred he needs to fix the open spots in the armor or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't expect anyone to be up under his ribs, I guess. You know? Like, anyway, Batman Returns is awesome. This movie sucks ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Ass or dick.
So this movie ends, Steve, like I mentioned, with the new group of heroes running toward the screen. Do you have any final thoughts about Batman and Robin before we do ratings?
So I would like to talk about the reaction to this movie and some of the after effects of it failing at Warner Brothers, but I could wrap those into my rating if you wanted me to.
Whatever you want, man.
All right, well, I want to touch on at least the aftermath a little bit. This movie did shit at the box office, at least as of the last check. It had an aggregated score on Rotten Tomatoes at 12%. Average critic rating, I think, is like 3.48 or 4 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, Joel Schumacher's tongue-in-cheek attitude hits an unbearable limit in Batman and Robin, resulting in a frantic and mindless movie that's too jokey to care much for. I agree with that completely. Just in terms of the how bad it really was for the studio, they had a bunch of other stuff planned. There was another one planned called Batman Unchained. There was actually a script for it written by a guy named Mark Prosetovich. There was also going to be an adaptation of Batman Year One. Both of them got canned. The intended year one adaptation eventually became Batman Begins, which didn't come out till 2005. Schumacher has said that he had meetings with Warner Brothers after this, trying to convince them to let him reboot it, that it was going to be way darker if he let them do it, and that he wanted to be in charge of year one. He apparently told them he wanted to cast Kurt Russell as a young Commissioner Gordon. And interestingly, reportedly, he wanted to do another Catwoman, but he wanted to recast Selina as being African-American, which is something they did sort of do with Matt Reeves' Batman. But the studio told him no, cannot do that. We're not going to do any of that. There was the rumor.
They said, we don't want your woke bullshit.
Right? The gay director and more butts. I talked earlier, Coolio swears to God that they were going to spin him off as Jonathan Crane in a sequel that got canceled. There's also a rumor that they interviewed or talked to Jeff Goldblum at one point about playing Scarecrow in a follow-up movie, and both got dropped because this movie did so bad. O'Donnell has claimed that Batman Unchained was going to be more focused on Robin, and that the studio did bring it up with him, but that it got dropped. The reviews were not friendly. I mean, I can wrap this into my review, but I mean, there's a couple points here. I'll try. Let me just try to touch on them quickly. This guy named Jay Boyer from the Orlando Sentinel called this movie a bat smorgasbord of action, camp, pathos, spectacle, and whatever, which he was right about. Roger Ebert, who I often disagree with, but I agree with him here. Roger Ebert said the film was wonderful to look at, but had nothing authentic at its core. Criticized the movie for basically being a toy ad. He gave the movie a thumbs down. There's some other really good ones here. I mean, Variety, the San Francisco Chronicle, really terrible reviews from them. Star Tribune called it embarrassingly mundane, called Schwarzenegger wasted. One of the big ones, Kevin Feige from Marvel Studios, said that Batman and Robin may be the most important comic book film ever because that it was so bad it demanded a new way of doing things. In an interview way after the fact, Schumacher has apologized for it before. He's actually apologized directly to the fans before. Clooney has said that he actually has personally given people $10 as refunds for having seen it. And then here's my absolute favorite. This will be my capper before we do the actual reviews. In a 2021 or 2 interview, apparently, I haven't read the interview, but the snippet I found, Tim Burton commented about Warner Brothers' decision to replace him as director with Schumacher. And Burton's comment, in quotes, "You complain about me. I'm too weird. I'm too dark. And then you put nipples on the costume. Go fuck yourself." And I couldn't agree with that response anymore. So yeah, that's it. Those are my final thoughts. Oh, well, and I will guess I mentioned, they say that Freeze's suit cost $1.5 million to make, which is a huge waste of money.
Jonathan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, this kind of goes in line with the woke bullshit comment that you had earlier, but there was one very specific line in this movie, and you probably know where I'm going to go with this, but Batman says, "Who are you? Batgirl? That's not very PC." And I was like, what in the fuck is he talking about right now? First of all, it's 97. Nobody gives a fuck about PC in 1997.
They did. We just don't remember it. But they
It's
did
true.
clearly.
It was more of it than
our
still.
age group
Yeah.
did not give a shit about anything PC. But how is Batgirl not very PC as even compared to Batman?
Didn't he say like it shouldn't be Bat Person or something like that?
Shouldn't you be Bat Person?
Right? Shouldn't we all be
Right,
Bat Person?
Right.
The only one who's like more gender neutral is Robin. You know?
And Robin's even a unisex name, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. It's like Bird Person.
Bird Person. I love
Rick
it.
and Morty.
And you are?
Batgirl.
That's not awfully PC. What about Bat Person or Bat Woman?
My culture regards naming as a form of cage. My friends call me Bird Person.
Culture really f***ed you on that one, huh?
Affirmative.
And there's also, I always think of Birdman the lawyer and Harvey Birdman from Adult Swim. I love that show. No.
Batgirl is not very PC.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you can call her Barbara if you want. I mean, it's not written in stone.
Yeah. My final thought is about the suits. So the suits do not look good on the actors by and large, but the most glaring one is George Clooney, whose face in the cowl just does not really work as Batman for me. I've heard some people say they like it. I don't like it. I don't like him as Bruce Wayne. I don't like him as Batman. I don't think his voice works well as Batman. Maybe that's because I have the one definitive voice actor that played Batman, rest in peace, but it's not him, that's for sure.
I agree. If I'm being honest, Pattinson in the Batman is the only instance where I've actually thought the mask looked like it fit properly or the way I want it to. And it's not to say the others are bad. I really love the costumes from both of Burton's Batman movies. I mean that. I really like the way they did Bale for Nolan's movies, but Bale's face feels like it's being squished inside. Yeah, and it always looks a little bloated inside the mask. And I'm not saying he looks bloated, but it looks like it's shaping his face in a way that like he's been in an oven and it's kind of baked out. It's weird. It gets a weird shape to it. And like even Keaton in some of the scenes in the first two, it doesn't look quite right. But I like the designs enough anyway. I look past it and it's not bad. This is bad. It's just bad.
I want to finish my final thought here. So Robin's costume, I think, is the exception. I think his Nightwing style costume, instead of the blue, it has the red, obviously, looks a lot better than Batman's costume. And it's a lot better than the way his costume looked as Robin from the last movie. So I'll say this, Chris O'Donnell in the Robin suit, the costume, everything neck down, I think that actually looks pretty good. And it is kind of like classic Nightwing. And I think that's the best positive I can probably give.
I like the aesthetic of it. I like the intended aesthetic of it. It's still, my big problem is what I was saying before. They all look like they're made of hard acrylic. That's what I was looking for, acrylic plastic. They look like they're made of acrylic plastic to me. I don't know.
I think Alicia Silverstone rocks a bat suit better than George Clooney does.
Yeah, well, God, yeah. I mean, I'll look at her in anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just as a character in whole, I think they did better in this movie on her costume than they did for his.
Yeah.
Steve, on any rating scale you want, what are you going to give Batman and Robin, the movie that we waited many years to review and I'm glad we finally knocked out?
You ever gotten an egg in a carton of eggs that had sat around too long and wasn't refrigerated properly and it had a dead little chicken fetus in it? Because that happens. It does happen. And I'm giving this movie one of those. I don't even know what else to call it. An egg with a dead chicken baby inside. I'm giving this movie one of those. Like, I'm going to give any movie 1 star.
Even this one?
Well, here's the thing. I've said it before, I'll say it again. My general rule is I'll give anything 1 star because they successfully made a movie. That's my criteria for 1 star.
Shouldn't the lowest possible be 0 instead of 1?
I see, but I'm thinking 0 would have to be reserved for like, I don't even know what I'd give a 0 to. A 0 has to be a product that doesn't even really exist. You know, like I don't know if it's possible for me to give a 0, even in this case. I'll give it the 1 because my 1 point is just credit for you successfully cast, shot, costumed, edited, and released a movie. So I'll give you 1 for that. Because that's not an easy thing to do, even if the movie itself is awful. But that's the most. And I'm talking about eggs with dead chicken fetuses inside. This movie gets 1 of those from me.
Do you even want one of those?
No, exactly. And that's the real rub here for me is I'm giving it a star, but it's like, or an egg, but it's the one you wouldn't even want it. You don't even want that one. This movie is shit from the moment it starts. It's cringy every single moment along the way. The bat costumes look like they're made of acrylic plastic. Bane looks ridiculous. The scripting is bad. The acting is bad. The characters are uninteresting. The story isn't compelling. The special effects aren't very good. Batman's gadgets are stupid. That's a core part of the story. The vehicles are awful. I can't think of anything the only moment I took any joy was the creepy, rapey gang member with the neon face. That's how bad this is. This is the one thing I really liked. Was the 8 seconds he was on screen.
Hello,
horrible.
my pretty.
You look good enough to eat. And even Uma Thurman, who gets a lot of credit for camping up her performance in this, fine, she's the only one who had fun, but I'm still not giving her any credit. It's awful. You want to see something good with Uma Thurman camping it up and being the lead? Watch Kill Bill. Yeah, terrible. So that's for me. One egg with a dead chicken fetus inside.
Jesus.
Right.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
I'm going to go next, and I'm going to give this 2 Batgirl titties out of 10.
2. Wow, you're a generous man.
This movie is not good, but it has some moments I like, and I talked about that. So I have to go a little bit beyond my natural instinct of just giving it a 1 or a half star or something like that. At times, this movie is so bad it's good, so that kind of kicks it in the right direction, but also sometimes it's just fucking bad.
It's a porta potty someone set on fire.
Portisan. This movie is Portisan.
Portisan? You mean those toilets at construction sites? Ew, I give up the throne.
No, not Portisan.
But yeah, I mean, everything you talked about, Steve, this movie is shot poorly, the script is bad, the dialogue is bad, the acting is hammy because of bad direction.
Right.
The costumes at times are really bad. You know, the cinematography, that Dutch angle shit gets on my fucking nerves and I goddamn hate it. I don't think the action scenes are particularly good.
No.
If you think of this movie and you try to picture an action scene, it's usually like a spectacle moment, like a big freeze gun move or something like that. And it's not so much like Batman beating someone up, because there's very little of that. And I think you can picture those more prevalently in some of the other movies, like where Batman takes on a group of thugs and he does a certain thing. This one doesn't have that. It's just like kick, punch, parappa the rapper. It's all in your mind. So
you gotta believe. I love that game.
So fuck this movie by and large. I don't like it.
No.
Jonathan, on any rating scale you want, what are you gonna give Batman and Robin?
Oh man, well, I've given it a lot of thought. I think you guys have done very well above and beyond, touching on all the things that we like or don't like at all about the entirety of this movie. Korey and Steve, you guys both know me as a guy that is not super into the comic book world or even the Marvel or DC worlds or X-Men or anything. Like it's just not my bag, but
Well,
I want.
I happen to have a book here written and signed by you that says Marvel, DC, X-Men, and comic books. This sort of thing is my bag, baby.
Well, you can go ahead and hang on to that. I'll autograph it for you. But
Austin Powers hasn't aged well either. Anyway,
I want to be into it, so I give these movies a shot out of you. I cherish the Burton Batman movies. This is just a steaming pile of dog shit. I congratulate them for getting such a star-studded cast together to make a movie. I mean, in 97, there were not many actors bigger than Arnold, Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, Uma Thurman, Alicia Silverstone, Vivica Fox. I mean, these are a lot of stars in this movie, all obviously looking for a payday, and that's a recipe for a disaster. More times than not, we see this huge cast of stars come together and just make an abomination of a movie, and that happened this time. It's not something that I plan on watching again.
Ever.
It's not something that I even want to like show my kids if they get into Batman. God, no. I mean, not even for nostalgic factors. I don't have any business watching this movie ever again, and I'm kind of irritated that I had to spend $4 to watch it and rent it this morning. So for this, I will give it 9 out of 10 disappointed father's looks.
Is that like a reverse rating
He's doing it the
system?
reverse
That is a
way.
reverse rating.
Reverso rating.
So the higher the number, the worse it is?
Oh yeah.
That's interesting way to go. I like that.
Us as fathers are so disappointed in this movie. And I hope that it goes back in the closet.
Yeah, I mean, this movie's got the aftertaste of toilet wine. It's really, really terrible.
It's called Pruno.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I didn't want to get too technical for our listeners.
This is Pruno that has used Fifi bags washed up.
my God.
Yeah, this is Pruno with a lot of like antifreeze mixed into it. Like, this is the worst it can possibly get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, dude. I'm done.
All right, everyone. Chill. Chill.
God. Ignore this film.
Chill.
The more you say it, the funnier it gets.
Right. All right. Thank you guys for listening. I'm talking to you, the audience. And thank you guys, talking to Jonathan and Steve, for being here. I appreciate you guys coming and being here for this long podcast. I wasn't sure if you guys would get burned out doing a podcast this long. I knew it would be this long, and I'm ready for it. You know, this is what I love, but I appreciate you guys driving all the way to the studio and sitting in these uncomfortable fucking chairs for as long as you have, especially you, Jonathan.
Having
so
to do
sorry.
it for this movie has got the appeal of a vasectomy. Like, I mean, really. Anyway.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to this post.
If you, the audience, want to write in and talk to us, give us your feedback, suggest a movie, you can email us at bigdumbmovie@gmail.com. Comments on this video on YouTube, like this video on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube. Even if you don't listen to us on YouTube, just subscribe to us there and give us some likes, give us some comments. It'll help grow this channel. And the more this channel grows, the more content I can make. I appreciate you guys listening. I really do. If you like this podcast, the best thing you can do for us is give us a 5-star rating and written review on Apple Podcasts. Now, if you don't use an iPhone, if you don't use an Apple product, I'm sure you know someone who does. Borrow their phone for a minute. Look in the podcast app. Find Big Dumb Movie, give us a positive rating, and write a little review. Doesn't have to be anything meaningful. Just type some words. Type ASDF. I don't give a fuck. But if you type something in there and you submit it with the rating, it helps out more than if you don't. So that's what I'm looking for. Again, just thank you so much for listening, and thank you guys for being here. I really enjoyed this podcast. I'm just going to give you guys a heads up for the listener, by the way. There's no banter after the end music, so you don't have to listen for that song to end.
Our normal after credits isn't there this time.
Oh no, all the banter is within the pod itself.
So thank you so much for listening. We love you, and good night.